The world did not end with a bang. It ended with geometry. 10 years ago, black monoliths pierced the crust of the earth. They did not ask for permission. They simply arrived. So, game numb. Every major artery of human civilization was suddenly punctured by these obsidian needles. Nuclear fire were washed over them. They remained cold. Human engineering clawed at their surface. They remained smooth. They were absolute. Eventually, the insects stopped attacking the stone and started walking inside. They called themselves the Awakened, a majestic title for grave robbers. They walked into the throat of the unknown and returned with magic, with strength, with gold. The towers were not threats. They were slot machines. And humanity, in its infinite greed, lined up to pull the lever. But the house always wins. And the house charges an entry fee. The narrative focuses on a specimen named Park Sejun. He is 26. He is biologically unremarkable. He stands in a grocery store, surrounded by the bright, artificial colors of packaging, holding a bundle of green onions. He is vibrating with a specific frequency of despair. He checks his bank account. 12 million won. A fortune to a starving man. A joke to the tower. The price of admission, a ticket to the first floor plaza, has shifted. It is now 200 million. The math is simple. The math is a guillotine. Sejun looks at the green onions. They are limp. Chi. They are the only thing he can afford. He looks at the screen displaying the idol, Sura, a woman who walks the upper floors like a goddess. He is not looking at a celebrity. He is looking at a different species. He walks home. The shadow of the tower cuts across the city. A sundial counting down the wasted hours of his life. He is heavy. The gravity of poverty is crushing his spine. He wants a way out. He wants a cheat code. The universe, displaying a cruel sense of humor, obliges. The air in the alleyway screams. It is not a sound. It is the tearing of the fabric of reality. A vanishing. A blue vortex, violent and hungry, rips open the space in front of him. Standard survival instinct dictates flight. When the void opens its maw, the prey runs. A rational human sees death and retreats to safety. Sejun stops. He looks into the swirling chaos. He does not see a predator. He sees a door. He sees the 200 million won ticket price dropping to zero. Panic sets in. Not the panic of dying, but panic of missing the sale. He tightens his grip on the plastic bag. The green onions crunch. He treats them like a broadsword. He does not scream for help. He screams at the void. He demands it take him. He sprints. He throws his body into the tear just as the universe tries to stitch itself shut. He chooses the fall. He expects the lobby. He expects the polished marble, the chandeliers, the soft hum of the tutorial eye welcoming him to a life of adventure. He gets gravity. He hits the ground. The sound is wet. Heavy. Dust fills his lungs. He coughs, his body screaming from the impact. He opens his eyes, expecting the glow of magic lamps. He sees darkness. He smells damp earth. Stone. He scrambles to his feet, eyes darting, looking for the welcome screen. Looking for the shop. Looking for the exit. He finds a wall. A sheer, vertical cliff stretching up into an abyss. Far above, a single, mocking beam of sunlight filters down, highlighting the dust motes dancing around him. He is inside the tower. Technically. But he is not a player. He is a glitch. He has fallen into the cracks between the floorboards. There is no tutorial here. There is no path. There is only the silence. We do not watch the weeping. We do not watch the days of screaming at the stone. That is boring. We skip the breakdown and observe the reconstruction. 150 days pass in the blink of an eye. The camera returns to the cave. The man standing in the shaft of sunlight is no longer Park Sejun, the grocery shopper. He is something else. His clothes are rags, held together by friction and hope. His skin is stained with the permanent grime of the underground. He does not hold a sword. He holds a hoe. He is not alone. Standing next to him is a rabbit. It stands on two legs. It holds a mallet with the casual familiarity of a union worker. On the man's shoulder sits a cat. The creature wears a hooded cloak and carries the distinct aura of a shady used car salesman. Sejun smiles. It is a terrifying smile. It is the smile of a man who has conquered his own starvation. He is a tower farmer. The perspective shifts. We leave the damp cave for the first floor. Or perhaps a chaotic intersection of the lower levels. The cat, Theo, stands on a crate. He is surrounded by humans. These are hunters. They wear steel. They carry enchanted blades. They radiate the arrogance of those who have killed goblins. They are looking at the chaos. They are looking at the vegetable in the cat's paw. Skepticism ripples through the crowd. A warrior scoffs. He picks up a cherry tomato. It is small, rigged, unimpressive. He asks why he should care. He has rations. He has meat. Theo does not argue. He simply points to the air. Check the status window. The warrior blinks. The blue box manifests. Magical cherry tomato. Effect. Restores mana. Bonus effect. Decomposes tang of body fat upon consumption. Silence descends. It is absolute. The tragedy of the tower is usually death. But the company of the tower is vanity. These warriors face demons. They face fire. They face death daily. But they are human. They are insecure. The promise of dissolving fat with a single bite. That is not a stat boost. That is a miracle. The atmosphere breaks. Dignity evaporates. The warriors are no longer soldiers. They are a mob. They scream numbers. 300 coins. 250. They shove each other. They throw currency at the cat. They are desperate for the red fruit. Theo watches them with golden, slit eyes. He collects the coins. He is the bridge between the savage underground and the desperate surface. Cut back to the cave. Sejun waits. He is tending the soil. The green onions, the ones he fell with, have become the ancestors of his empire. He has cultivated the land. He has bent the darkness to his will. The rabbit family works beside him. They are efficient. They are loyal. They are the only society he has. Theo returns. The cat looks exhausted. He drags a sack behind him. It clinks with the heavy, satisfying sound of silver. Sejun does not weep with joy. He scratches the merchant behind the ears. He offers a dry joke. For 1 hour, the cat can be the boss. But the harvest does not stop. Sejun turns to the side. He crushes the magical tomatoes. He mixes the pulp with honey. He is brewing a potion, a vitality drink for his workers. The rabbits line up. They hold out wooden cups. Their eyes are wide, dark pools of anticipation. They drink. Their fur stands on end. Energy floods their small limbs. This is the loot. Plate. Harvest. Sell. Feed. A blue window pops into existence in front of Sejun's face. Quest. The administrator requests the honey drink. The system is watching. The invisible god of this world wants a taste. Sejun looks at the floating text. He looks at his cup. He looks at the dirt under his fingernails. He waves his hand. Dismissed. He tells the system. Later. He rejects the god. He has leverage. He controls the supply. If the administrator wants the juice, the administrator can wait in line like everyone else. He has carved a sanctuary out of a prison. He has forgotten the man who stood in the grocery aisle. That man is dead. This man is a king of dirt and roots. But the tower is not just a farm. It is a living organism. Deep in the bowels of the structure, far below the sunlight shaft, shadows coalesce. A black dragon opens its eyes. It is massive. Ancient. Its scales absorb the light. It is the administrator. The absolute authority. It gazes into a crystal sphere. It sees the cave. It sees the man in rags. It sees the rabbits. It sees the cherry tomatoes that are rewriting the biological rules of the ecosystem. The dragon is confused. The dragon is intrigued. Something is changing the tower from the inside out. An anomaly has taken root. Sejun wipes sweat from his forehead. He laughs at something the rabbit does. He checks his coin count. He feels safe. He is wrong. He is not safe. He has merely become interesting. And to be interesting to a predator is the most dangerous thing in the world. The silence of the cave continues. But now, the silence is listening. And somewhere beyond his awareness, the tower has already noticed him. The insects outside the tower buzz with ignorance. They tell stories of a glittering palace. They speak of a grand tutorial, a structured game where brave warriors climb ladders of steel and magic to claim glory. They imagine bustling marketplaces selling potions and hope. They view the Black Tower as a vending machine for power. They are wrong. The tower is not a game. It is a throat. And Park Sejun has been swallowed whole. There is no palace here. There is no tutorial instructor waiting to guide him. There is only the damp, suffocating reality of a stone cave. A sealed tunnel with no exit. He has spent 24 hours mapping the dimensions of his coffin. He screamed until his vocal cords tore, begging for a savior, for a system notification, for anything other than the oppressive silence. The silence did not answer. It merely absorbed his panic, indifferent to his existence. Morning arrives. Not with the sun, but with the digital shriek of a smartphone alarm. 6 o'clock. The device is a ghost. The network signal is dead. a severed limb of the civilization he left behind. But the battery persists. It is the only anchor to a reality where his greatest concern was paying rent, not starving to death in a geological pocket. Hunger is the first truth he learns. It is a twisting, physical pain that demands acknowledgement. Sejun empties his pockets onto the cold, unforgiving rock. He takes inventory of his life. 1 bottle of water. 27 cherry tomatoes. 10 green onions. 7 pumpkin sweet potatoes. 1 washed apple. This is not a supply cage. It is a countdown. He consumes the apple first. He eats it with the frantic speed of a scavenger. But the sweetness is a lie. It vanishes instantly, leaving the hollow edge in his gut untouched. He moves to a sweet potato. It is raw. It is covered in the filth of the earth. He bites down. It crunches. A dry, starky noise that echoes in the quiet. He forces it down, rationing sips of water to lubricate the passage of the raw tuber. It is miserable. It is necessary. He lies back on the stone floor. The weight of the earth above him presses down on his chest. The psychological rot begins to set in. How long does a human body last on a handful of vegetables? 3 days. A week. He visualizes his future. He sees his body withering, the moisture sucked from his skin until he is nothing but a dried husk in an unmarked grave. A mummy in a tracksuit. The image is vivid. Terrifying. His adrenaline spikes. Refusal. He did not enter the abyss to die quietly. He remembers the dream that lured him here. The desire for something more. Survival is not a gift the tower grants. It is a violent act of will. His gaze falls upon the apple core. A spark of logic cuts through the primal fear. Seeds. Roots. Life requires life to sustain itself. He looks at the green onions. 10 stalks. If he eats them now, he gains a few hours of energy. If he waits, if he suffers, they might become a lifeline. He separates the green leaves from the white roots with surgical care. He consumes the green, the bitter, fibrous past that offers little comfort. Then, he turns to the ground. The cave floor is hard, packed earth and stone. He uses his bare hands. He claws at the dirt, his fingernails scraping against the rock, ignoring the pain. He buries the 10 root sections. He plants 3 of the precious tomatoes. He enters 2 sweet potatoes. He waters them with the last dregs of his bottle. It is a gamble. He is trading hydration for time. He stands over the small patches of disturbed dirt. It is pathetic. It is everything. Then, the air changes. It is not a wind. It is a pressure. The atmosphere in the cave becomes heady, charged with a static density that makes the hair on his arms stand up. The silence deepens, becoming absolute. Sejun looks up. There is a hole in the ceiling of the cave, a small aperture to the sky. The light is changing. The sun is gone. In its place, a moon rises. It is not the white moon of Earth. It is blue. A malevolent, glowing cobalt eye staring down into the abyss. The blue moon. A phenomenon whispered about in the deepest lore of the tower. A time when the mana density becomes toxic to the weak. A sound tears the sky apart. It is a roar that vibrates in the marrow of Sejun's bones. He collapses. His knees hit the stone. He clutches his head as a migraine splits his skull. This is not sound. It is dominance. Through the hole in the rock, a shadow passes across the blue eclipse. Wings. Massive enough to blot out the heavens. A dragon. The apex of all existence within the tower. Sejun's mind cannot process the scale of the creature. It is too large, too powerful. The magical pressure radiating from the beast crushes the air out of the cave. Sejun is an insect in the presence of a god. His consciousness snaps like a twig. Darkness takes him. Eat. The sound is offensive. Sejun opens his eyes. The phone screen glows in the dark. 2 days have passed. He has been unconscious for 48 hours. His body is a wreck. His joints are stiff from sleeping on rock, his muscles atrophied from the coma. He groans, forcing himself upright. He turns to check his pathetic garden, expecting to see withered, dead scraps. He stops. He blinks. The cave is not empty. The green onions he planted are gone. In their place stand pillars of emerald green. They are thick as young trees, their stalks towering over him. The sweet potatoes and tomatoes have erupted from the earth, mutated into vibrant, monstrous versions of themselves. Sejun stares. This is not Bodhi. This is sorcery. The blue moon. The dragon's presence. The sheer density of mana in the air has accelerated the life cycle of the plants by a factor of 1,000. They have evolved. He approaches the onion trees. There are 52 of them now, crowding the small space. They are thriving too much. They are choking each other. He needs to thin the herd. He grips a stalk. He expects it to yield like a vegetable. It feels like gripping a steel pipe wrapped in organic matter. He braces his feet. He pulls. His muscles burn. He grunts, straining against the plant's structural integrity. With a wet, crisp snap, the stalk gives way. He falls back, panting. Harvesting is not a chore here. It is a workout. He continues. He piles the giant vegetables, sweat dripping from his nose. He is exhausted, but he is also looking at a pile of food that could last him weeks. He picks up a leaf the size of a broadsword. He takes a bite. Explosion. Fire detonates in his mouth. It is spacey. Aggressively, violently spacey. It burns his tongue, clears his sinuses, and brings tears to his eyes. He coughs, hacking, but he keeps chewing. As the heat fades, something else remains. Fatality. There is no stomachache. The toxicity he feared is absent. The mana has purified the plant, leaving only concentrated nutrition. It is potent. It is fuel. He tries the cherry tomatoes next. They burst in his mouth. A bomb of sugar and juice, superior to any fruit grown under a natural sun. He sits back, satisfied for the first time since the fall. His brain begins to work again. Logic returns. The blue moon. The dragon. The public guides for the first floor describe skeletons. Flimes. Basic training grounds for novices. The major guilds have mapped the tower up to the 37th floor. They speak of orcs and spiders. Nowhere in the archives of human knowledge is there a mention of a dragon on the lower floors. Nowhere is there a mention of a sealed cave. The realization hits him with the force of a physical blow. He is not on the first floor. He is not on any known floor. He has fallen through the cracks of the system. He is in the basement of the world, a place even the rankers do not know exists. Scritch. A sound near the cave entrance. Sejun freezes. The blood runs cold in his veins. Footsteps. He scrambles backward, pressing his spine against the cold rock wall. He grabs a green onion stalk. It is a pathetic weapon, but it is all he has. A monster. It has to be. The dragon's minion. A goblin scavenger. A shadow detaches itself from the darkness. It steps into the light. Long ears. White fur. A twitching nose. A rabbit. Sejun lowers the onion slightly. He does not relax. In the tower, appearances are traps. A rabbit can tear a man's throat out just as easily as a wolf. The creature looks at him. Its eyes are intelligent. It looks at the onion in his hand. It hops forward. Sejun flinches. Say back. The rabbit ignores him completely. It leaps. It bounces off the top of Sejun's head with practiced disrespect, using him as a stepping stone, and lands softly in the middle of the harvested crop. It is not attacking. He is foraging. The white rabbit points a paw at the giant onion stalk. It looks at Sejun. But it is a demand. Sejun hesitates. This is the first living thing he has encountered that hasn't tried to kill him or ignore him. It is communicating. It wants a cut of the profits. He breaks off a leaf. He hands it over. The rabbit snatches it. Yum yum. The sound is absurd. It is undeniably cute. The predator in Sejun's mind relaxes. This is not a killer. This is a customer. I have a lot, Sejun says. His voice is rusty, unused to conversation. He looks at the garden. The stalks he harvested minutes ago are already regenerating. The vitality of this soil is infinite. He will have to harvest twice a day just to keep the jungle from taking over. The rabbit finishes the leaf. It wipes its face. It looks at Sejun with sparkling eyes. It waves a paw and scampers off into the dark tunnel. Sejun is alone again. But the silence has changed. It is no longer a tomb. It is a waiting room. 5 minutes later, the white rabbit returns. It is not alone. It drags another rabbit with it. This one wears a tiny straw hat. It carries a miniature watering can. Sejun stares. Hibrat. Back up. The two rabbits sit together. They nuzzle. The intimacy is palpable. Are you? Sejun feels ridiculous asking the question to a rodent. Are you married? The rabbits chirp. A visible aura of heart floats above their heads. Sejun sighs. A long, exhaling breath that carries away the last of his terror. He is trapped in a void. He is farming mutant vegetables under the gaze of a dragon god. And now, a rabbit couple has moved into his living room. He looks at his thriving garden. He looks at his new companions. He is alive. But survival is not mercy. It is simply permission to continue. The diary of the tower farmer has begun. The tower does not care if you breathe. It does not care if you starve. It is a silent, monolithic tomb of stone and darkness, waiting patiently for the biological functions of its prisoners to cease. Time here is a liquid. Thick, ficus. It moves slowly, dripping down the cavern walls like the condensation that gathers on the cold rock. Sejun understands this now. He is not living. He is enduring. He watches the hierarchy of this small, damp ecosystem establish itself. And the reality is humiliating. He is not the apex here. He is not even the laborer. He is the observer. The useless organic mass sitting on a rock, watching superior life forms manipulate the environment. The rabbits. They are not pets. To call them pets would be an insult to their efficiency. They are engines of agriculture. Sejun washes the male rabbit. The creature holds a watering can. A simple object. Or so it appears. Physics has no authority here. The law of conservation of mass is a suggestion the rabbit chooses to ignore. The water flows. It does not stop. A ceaseless, infinite stream pouring from a vessel that should have been empty minutes ago. The rabbit does not struggle. It does not strain. It simply walks, a god of hydration, blessing the dry earth with moisture that shouldn't exist. Sejun looks at his own hands. Empty. Roof. Useless. He looks to the female rabbit. She wears an apron. It looks like fabric. It acts like a tear in the fabric of reality. She reaches into the pocket. She pulls out a shovel. Then a rake. Then a hoe. Tools that are physically larger than the pocket itself. She is pulling matter out of a void, treating dimensional manipulation as a mundane chore. Sejun sits on his rock. He has nothing. He is a man who fell into a hole, outclassed by rodents with reality-bending accessories. The soil drinks the water. The plants respond. This is not normal growth. This is violent vitality. The cherry tomato plants do not just grow. They surge. They twist and stretch, green limbs clawing upward, desperate for the artificial light. In moments, they transform from struggling saplings into thick, producing vines. The farming stat increases. The system rewards him. But the labor was not his. He offers a thumbs up. A human gesture. A weak signal of approval from the cheap seats. The rabbits pause. They look at him. They accept the gesture with the indifference of professionals acknowledging a fan. They have passed his test. But they are done with him. The work is finished. The biological imperative to rest takes over. They do not come to him for head pats. They do not seek his validation. They turn toward the cavern wall. Explosion of motion. Their paws become a blur. The sound of earth being displaced fills the cave. Dirt flies through the air in a steady, rhythmic arc. Sejun blinks. It takes minutes. Mere minutes for them to carve a sanctuary out of the solid earth. The female rabbit reaches into the void pocket again. She pulls out a wreath. Flowers. Bright, impossible flowers. She hangs them on a small, round wooden door that shouldn't exist. They have built a home. A door. A wreath. A burrow. They step inside. The door clicks shut. Sejun stands alone in the cavern. The silence returns. It is heavier now. He looks at the small wooden door. It mocks him. They are a family. They have a residence. They have walls to separate them from the void. He turns around. He sees his bed. A pile of dry onion stalks. A heap of rotting vegetation on the cold, damp floor. He is a homeless man living in the basement of monsters. The loneliness hits him. It is not a sharp pain. It is a dull, suffocating weight. The presence of the rabbits had distracted him, fooled him into thinking he had society. He does not. He has neighbors who have locked their doors. He lies down on the stalks. The humidity presses against his skin. The air is thick, hot, and still. He stares at the ceiling. Debris. Trash. A plastic water bottle lies in the dirt. A piece of garbage from the world above. A remnant of a life where he walked on pavement and bought things with money. A beam of sunlight cuts through the darkness above. It strikes the bottle. Refraction. The light bends. It concentrates. A memory surfaces. Not a survival instinct, but a fragment of digital consumption. YouTube videos. Tutorials watched in the comfort of an air-conditioned room. The physics of optics. A convex lens. Sejun sits up. His eyes narrow. The predator inside him wakes up. Not a predator of flesh, but a predator of opportunity. He needs fire. Fire is not just heat. Fire is the line in the sand. Fire is what separates the thinking man from the dying animal. He scrambles. He gathers dry onion leaves. He crumbles them. He makes a nest. His hands tremble. This is not a game. If he fails, he eats raw roots in the dark. If he succeeds, he reclaims his humanity. He positions the bottle. He hunts for the focal point. He adjusts the angle. The light tightens. It becomes a piercing dot of white heat on the dry leaves. Smoke. A thin, gray ribbon curls upward. It is a tease. The smoke is not fire. It is the ghost of fire. It signals potential, but offers no warmth. He leans in. He blows. His lungs are weak. His breath is jagged. He blows gently, trying to coax the demon to lie. The smoke wavers. It threatens to die. Panic. Cold, sharp panic. He cannot do this alone. He is physically insufficient. He turns to the wooden door. He shouts. He begs. Help me. The door opens. The rabbits emerge. They blink, their noses twitching. They look at the frantic human gesturing at a pile of smoking trash. They understand. They do not mock him. They recognize the mission. They crouch beside him. The hierarchy dissolves for a moment. There is no master, no pet. There is only the tribe, and the need for the spar. The rabbits puff their cheeks. They blow. Steady. Controlled. Powerful lungs designed for endurance. Sejun holds the light. The rabbits provide the oxygen. The focal point screams with heat. The air feeds the reaction. Ignition. A tongue of orange flame snaps into existence. It is violent. It is beautiful. Sejun recoils, then screams. A cheer that tears at his throat. Fire. He has stolen the sun. He wastes no time. Sentiment is for the full. He is empty. He grabs a stalk of green onion. A thick, juicy limb of vegetation. He thrusts it into the flame. The reaction is immediate. The skin blackens. It blisters. The water inside boils, steaming the flesh from within. The smell hits him. Roasted savory death. Sweetness. The scent of cooked food. It triggers a biological override in his brain. Saliva floods his mouth. He peels the burnt skin. The white flesh underneath shines like a pearl. He bites. Crunch. Softness. Heat. His brain short-circuits. This is not an onion. This is ambrosia. The flavor explodes. It is sweet, pungent, rich. He closes his eyes. Reality breaks. He sees a green horse. A majestic, muscular beast galloping through an open field of emerald grass. The hallucination is vivid. Terrifyingly real. It is the taste of victory. He opens his eyes. The rabbits are watching. They are not looking at him. They are looking at the food. Their noses twitch. Their black eyes are wide. The wall is gone. Sejun breaks the stalk. He tears off chunks of the steaming white gold. He offers it to them. They take it. They eat. The sound of chewing fills the cave. The fire crackles. The shadows dance on the walls. For the first time, the silence is kept at bay. The darkness presses in from all sides, vast and endless. The tower is still attuned. The stone is still cold. But in this small circle of light, there is warmth. Sejun wipes his mouth. His stomach is full. The primal fear of starvation retreats, lurking in the back of his mind, waiting for tomorrow. But tonight, the predator sleeps. Tonight, the insect has feasted. He closes his eyes. That is enough. The tower does not care about your hope. It does not care about your calendar, your memories, or the soft, fragile skin you bring from the surface world. It only respects survival. And survival is boring. For the human named Sejun, the panic has faded. That is the first trap. Panic keeps you alive. Comfort kills you. He wakes up. No alarms. No sunlight filtering through curtains. Just the crushing, absolute silence of a stone tomb. He stretches. His joints pop. The stone floor has no mercy for human vertebrae. He is stiff. He is sore. He drags himself to the underground pond. The water is black, cold enough to stop a heart. He splashes it on his face. The shock is the only thing that reminds him he is not a corpse yet. He looks at his kingdom. A pathetic patch of dirt in a world of infinite gray. But the dirt is yielding. Green onions stand in rows. Like soldiers. They are stiff, vibrant, arrogant in their defiance of the darkness. Cherry tomato plants have erupted into bushes. Sweet potato vines crawl across the floor like the veins of a desperate creature seeking water. Sejun stands there. Hands on hips. He feels pride. He thinks he is a king. He thinks he has conquered the tower, because he made a few vegetables grow. Cute. He forgets that a king without an army is just meat waiting for a butcher. The human mind is weak. It craves variety. It cannot survive on leaves and roots. It demands blood. His memory drifts. He rewinds the clock to the moment the hunger broke him. The cave was pitch black. A void. He needed to see. He and the rabbits, those twitching balls of fur he calls companions, set up torches. Fire against the water. He thought he was just lighting the room. He was wrong. In the tower, every action is a dinner bell. The light hit the black water. It rippled. Something down there saw the flicker. Something hungry. The surface shattered. A fish. Not a goldfish. A predator. Teeth like needles. Muscle like coiled steel. It launched itself at the light. It wanted to kill the source of the brilliance. It found Sejun instead. Sejun did not use a sword. He did not use magic. He used panic. He swung the torch. A clumsy primitive arc. Thwack. Physics is the only law that matters. The fish hit the stone. It flopped. It gasped. It died. Sejun looked at it. He didn't see an enemy. He saw protein. He roasted it. The smell changed the air in the cave. Fat dripping on coals. Seared flesh. It was a scent that bypassed logic and went straight to the lizard brain. He ate. He tore into it. Grease on his chin. The best meal of his life. But he felt eyes on him. The rabbits. They are herbivores. Or so the textbooks say. But in the tower, biology is a suggestion. They watched him eat. Their noses twitched. Their eyes were wide, wet, and filled with a longing that defied their nature. Sejun realized the truth. There are no vegetarians in the dungeon. He shared the meat. They ate together. A circle of monsters, chewing in the dark. But food is fleeting. Time is the real enemy. The blue moon. A cycle of madness. Every 30 days, the tower screams. The mana swells. The monsters lose their minds. Sejun needs to know when. He needs a clock. He looks at his laptop. The last artifact of the human world. The battery percentage hovers at 1%. He watches it. The screen flickers. And then, black. The digital age dies with a whimper. No explosion. No fanfare. Just a blank screen reflecting his own dirty face. He is untethered. He grabs a sharp stone. He goes to the wall. Scratch. One more. Scratch. Another. He carves time into the rock. 61 days. 2 months of breathing stale air. He needs a rhythm. He watches the rabbits. They sleep at 7. They wake at 5. He mimics them. He becomes a rabbit in a human suit. If he loses the rhythm, he loses his mind. Life finds a way to be annoying even in the dark. The silence breaks. Squeaking. High-pitched, sounds. The rabbit couple has been busy. A wave of fur pours from the burrow. Babies. A litter of them. They swarm Sejun. They don't respect his personal space. They climb him. They bury him. He is not a warrior. He is a jungle jam. The parents look at him. They look tired. They hand over the responsibility. You deal with them. Sejun accepts it. He plays with them. He lets his guard down. He forgets for a moment where he is. He takes the swarm to the farm. The cherry tomatoes are blooming. Yellow flowers. Beautiful. And useless. Flowers are a promise, not a meal. They need pollination. They need bees. They need wind. The cave has neither. Sejun sighs. The weight of existence presses down on him. He has to play God. He grabs a stick. He taps the flowers. One by one. Tap. Shake. Tap. Shake. It is pathetic. It is back-breaking. He is doing the work of an insect. He groans. He rubs his spine. The tower watches. The tower laughs. And then, it offers a joke. A baby rabbit. Curious. Stupid. It shoves its nose into a flower. The pollen hits. A coo. A sneeze. Not a gentle puff. A violent expulsion of air. The plant shakes. A cloud of yellow dust explodes into the air. It drifts. It settles. It covers every flower in the vicinity. Sejun freezes. He looks at the rabbit. The rabbit looks at him. Efficiency. Days later, the petals fall. Green spheres swell underneath. Fruit. Life created by a sneeze. Sejun laughs. He feels triumphant. He is a fool. The wall tells the truth. The tally marks stare at him. 30 days. The cycle is complete. The piece is over. The blue moon is here. Sejun stops laughing. The farmer dies. The prey is born. He moves. Fast. Quiet. He drowns the fire. Water on embers. Hissing steam. He buries the ash. Smell is death. He seals the rabbit burrow. A heavy rock. His family is safe deep underground. He is not. He has a suit. Woven from broad leaves. A ghillie suit. A costume of grass. He puts it on. He becomes a bush. He crawls to the corner of the cave. He pulls his knees to his chest. He lowers his head. He blends in. He waits. Outside, the world changes. The light shifts. The shadows sharpen. An eerie, sick blue glow filters into the cave entrance. And then, the sound. Screams. Not human screams. The screams of things being torn apart. The forest outside the cave is a meat grinder. The blue moon drives them mad. They kill. They eat. They die. Sejun trembles. He is a soft thing in a world of claws. He prays. He begs the universe for silence. The universe does not answer. Thump. The ground jumps. Thump. Dust falls from the ceiling. Thump. This is not a skirmish. This is mass. Sejun stops breathing. His lungs burn, but he refuses to let the air out. A shadow falls across the entrance. It blocks the blue light. A claw. Crimson. The size of a shovel. It slams into the dirt. It drags. Furrows appear in the stone. The creature squeezes inside. A crimson giant bear. It is not an animal. It is a siege engine wrapped in red fur. It stands on two legs. It mocks the shape of a man. It sniffs. Snuff. It smells the tomatoes. It smells the life in the stagnant air. It walks. Toward the farm. Toward Sejun. Sejun watches through the leaves. He sees the muscle ripple under the fur. He sees the madness in the glowing eyes. The bear is close. Too close. The shadow covers him. If it turns its head 10 degrees to the right, Sejun is past. Fear is a cold spike in the gut. Sejun's discipline cracks. Just a hairline fracture. He needs to shrink. He needs to be smaller. He presses back against the wall. He shifts his weight. His hand brushes his backpack. The pack leaning against the rock. A tiny movement. Red. The fabric catches on a sharp stone. It tears. Gravity takes over. The contents spill. Red tomatoes. Soft. Silent. And a water bottle. Plastic. Half empty. It hits the floor. Black. It rolls. Black. 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 The sound echoes. It bounces off the walls. In the silence of the cave, it sounds like a gunshot. The bottle rolls across the uneven stone. It wobbles. It comes to a stop. Right next to the bear's massive foot. The world freezes. The crimson giant bear stops moving. It looks down at the plastic bottle. It processes the anomaly. Then, slowly, agonizingly slowly, it turns its head. The neck creaks. The glowing eyes sweep across the room. They lock onto the pile of leaves in the corner. The camouflage fails. The sound that escapes the human's throat is pathetic. It is not a roar of defiance. It is not the last testament of a warrior facing the void. It is the wet, confused yelp of a prey animal realizing it is not dead. Sejun wakes. The darkness does not swallow him whole. Instead, pain anchors him to reality. Sharp, stinging impacts across his face. Snap. 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 His eyes peel open, sticky and disoriented. The roaring of the crimson giant bear, that sound which vibrates in the marrow of bones, is absent. In its place is a frantic, high-pitched squeaking. The pathetic orchestra of rodents. He blinks. The cave is dim. Shadows stretch like oil across the stone. He is not dissolving in the acid of a monster's stomach. He is on the floor. Cold stone bites into his spine. Above him, the rabbits. The mother. The husband. The husband rabbit raises a paw and strikes Sejun again. A desperate slap. A frantic attempt to reboot the human's consciousness. Sejun sits up. Air tears through his lungs in ragged gasps. He touches his cheek. The phantom sting of the slap mixes with the lingering cold of his nightmare. But the backpack is ripped. The supplies are scattered like garbage. The stone is freezing. This is no nightmare. He looks at the rabbits. His voice is a trembling thread. He asks the question that logic dictates he should not be able to ask. Why is he breathing? Then, the memory hits him. Cold. Sharp. Humiliating. The shadow of the bear blocking out the world. The scent of rot and old blood. The pressure of an apex predator standing inches away. And the smell of onions. In his blind panic, the human had draped himself in green onion leaves. He had buried his trembling form in the harvest. To the crimson giant bear, a creature of heightened senses and primal hunger, the human did not exist. There was no meat here. There was only the pungent, spicy sting of vegetation. The monster had paused. It had sniffed. It had judged the area devoid of prey. And it had walked away. Sejun realizes the truth. It was not skill. It was not courage. It was not a miracle. He survived because he smelled like a garnish. He survived because he was too insignificant to register as a meal. The indifference of the predator saved him. He slumps against the wall. His legs are water. The adrenaline dumps out of his system, leaving him shivering. A hollow husk in the dark. He survived the blue moon. He survived the frenzy of the tower. But being a vegetable. The rabbits move. They are simple creatures, bound by survival instincts. They gather dried leaves. They strike sparks. A small fire flickers to life, pushing back the oppressive weight of the dark. Sejun stares into the flame. Luck. He is running on fumes. The bear knows this location now. The hole in the wall is small, but hunger is a powerful motivator. Next time, the bear might dig. Panic begins to rise, choking him. He needs to stabilize. He reaches for the last remnant of his food. A roasted fish. He tears into it. The flavor is ash and salt, but it grounds him. He chews. He swallows. A hard resolve forms in his chest. 61 days. He has rotted in this hell for 2 months. He refuses to die as a snack. He stands. He needs to check the assets. The crops. He approaches the patch of the cherry tomatoes. Yesterday, they were green knots of potential. Today, they are monsters. Amidst the leaves, a single fruit glows. It is not natural. It pulses with a deep, ethereal blue light. It is the size of a golf ball. Heavy. Dense. Sejun kneels. The blue moon did not just drive the beasts to madness. It fed the earth. The magical radiation soaked into his garden. He touches the skin of the fruit. It hums with power. Then, the air shifts. A blue window manifests in the darkness. A hologram cutting through the gloom. Quest completed. Harvest of fruit containing the energy of the blue moon. Sejun stares. A quest. He was unaware he was playing a game. He thought he was simply starving slowly. A second window appears. Then a third. The speed is aggressive. Achievement unlocked. The tower manager has noticed your achievement. The tower manager is observing you. The tower manager is displeased. The air in the cave drops 10 degrees. Displeased. Sejun blinks, his mind failing to process the shit. He cultivated a miracle. He survived the impossible. Why is the god of this place unhappy? The next message arrives with the weight of a guillotine. The tower manager has discovered that you are not a registered guest. The silence that follows is absolute. The truth is laid bare. Sejun is not a chosen one. He is not a player. He is a glitch. A rounding error. He fell through a crack in the world, and like a cockroach scurrying across a dinner plate, he has finally been spotted. The text continues. Cold. Bureaucratic. Lethal. The tower manager wishes to hide this mistake. The tower manager is calculating whether to eliminate you to remove the evidence. Panic flares, hot and violent. This day. Sejun screams at the empty air. His voice cracks, echoing off the damp stone. You think my life is a blunder. I have bled for 61 days. I have fought for every breath. And you call me a glitch. He stands, fists clenched, trembling with the rage of the powerless. If I am a mistake, send me back. Don't talk about deletion. Do not dare erase me to cover your own incompetence. He challenges the ceiling. He challenges the invisible eyes watching him from the void. It is a suicidal gesture. A bug screaming at a boot. Silence reigns. The blue windows shimmer, indifferent to his outburst. The entity on the other side is calculating. It is weighing the cost of energy versus the annoyance of existence. Then, the text changes. The tower manager has made a decision. The tower manager is initiating your awakening. Sejun freezes. Awakening. The word hangs in the air, heavy with promise. In the legends, awakening is the metamorphosis. The moment the prey becomes the predator. The moment a human gains a class. Skills. Power. Hope creates a toxic rush in his blood. He is going to be a player. His mind races. A swordsman. Leaving the bear in two with a blade of pure energy. No, he is intelligent. A mage. He will rain hellfire upon the darkness. He will burn the monsters that hunted him. Light swirls around him. Particles of magic rewrite his biology. He closes his eyes. He opens his arms to receive his divinity. The tower manager is assigning your job class. Sejun's heart hammers against his ribs like a trapped bird. A grin splits his face. What is it? He whispers. What am I? A digital trumpet sounds. A fanfare of mockery. The text burns into his retinas. You have awakened as a tower farmer. Right? The silence returns. Heavier than before. Sejun stares. Farmer. Not a slayer. Not a warlock. Not a king. A gardener. He reads the benefits. Resistance to sickness. Affinity with nature. Experience points gained when harvesting. No, Sejun stammers. His hands shake. Wait. There is a mistake. He summons his status window. He prays for an error. Name. Park Sejun. Level 1. Stats. Strength 1. Stamina 1. Agility 1. Magic 1. Doubt. Tower farmer. Skills. None. It is pathetic. It is statistically impossible to be this weak and still be called awakened. He is a man with a hoe, and the durability of wet cardboard. His mind snaps. He collapses to the dirt. His imagination, cruel and vivid, paints a picture. He sees himself on a talk show. The hero. The host asks for his class. The audience waits with bated breath. And the tower farmer. In his mind, the audience laughs. The world laughs. The universe points a finger and howls. Sejun claws at his hair. He kicks the dirt. He throws a tantrum fit for a toddler. I don't need this. I barely survived by farming. I want power. I want to destroy. He grabs a handful of earth and hurls it. He grabs the blue cherry tomato. He raises his arm to smash the glowing fruit against the wall. To destroy the symbol of his mediocrity. He stops. The rabbits. They are watching him. Their ears droop. They are confused by the noise. They do not understand classes or ranks. They only know that this human fed them. This human grew food from stone. This human kept the fire burning. Sejun looks at the tomato. He grew this. With sweat. With fear. With patience. In a place where nothing should live, he created life. His breathing slows. The red haze of rage fades into a gray, wary acceptance. He is Park Sejun. He is not a warrior. He is a cockroach that refuses to be stepped on. If farming is the only weapon the tower gives him, he will sharpen it until it cuts. Guess I'm going to keep farming, he mutters. A wry, broken smile touches his lips. He focuses on the tomato again. Now, with his pathetic frank eyes, he can see the hidden data. Magical cherry tomato. Rank. Imbued with the energy of the blue moon. Effect. When consumed, permanently increases magic power by 0. Sejun freezes. He reads it again. Permanently increases magic power. 0. 5 is nothing. It is a rounding error. A speck of dust. But it is permanent. And he is a farmer. If he can grow 1, he can grow 10. If he can grow 10, he can grow 1,000. My God, he whispers. For the first time since entering the tower, he is not thinking about survival. He is thinking about scale. The difference between a divine quest and a back alley mugging is merely the font size of the notification window. In the deepest bowels of the tower, where the light of the sun is a myth and hope is a resource scarcer than water, Park Sejun stood frozen. He clutched the blue moon tomato against his chest. It was his magnum opus, a miracle born from mud and despair. But the blue holographic screen hovering before his eyes did not care about his effort. It did not care about the shivering of his hands with a hollow ache in his stomach. It was not a negotiation. It was a demand. Give the fruit. Or die. Sejun was not a warrior. He was prey that had forgotten its place in the food chain. He understood the physics of powerlessness intimately. Gravity pulls down. The strong eat the weak. There was no hero's defiance here. No swelling orchestral score. Just the damp silence of a cave, and the trembling of a man realizing he was nothing more than a vending machine for a god he couldn't see. He surrendered the fruit. He begged. He apologized for existing. His dignity peeled away in layers, stripped raw until only the instinct to breathe remained. The tower manager accepted the tribute with the indifference of a butcher accepting a coin. The screen flashed. The blue light washed over Sejun's humiliated face. Quest complete. Sejun had survived the extortion. He was allowed to keep his life, for now. The reward for his total abasement appeared in the air. A skill book. Sejun opened it with hands that still felt the phantom weight of the treasure he had lost. He hoped for a weapon. A shield. Something, anything, that would allow him to tear the throat out of the next thing that threatened him. Seal acquired. Sewing level 1. The universe has a twisted sense of humor. It was a passive ability. It slightly increased the germination rate of seeds. Sejun slumped. His shoulders collapsed under the weight of the cosmic Joe. He was a farmer trapped in a tower of monsters, and the system was ensuring he stayed exactly in his lane. Dig. Plant. Wait. Do not bite back. Time in the tower does not flow. It drips. A stagnant, rotting loop of labor and fatigue. Sejun turned his eyes to the underground lake. The black water was still, concealing the violence beneath the surface. If the land demanded patience, the water offered a more immediate transaction. Lead for flash. He fashioned a torch. He sharpened a spear. He became a predator of the lowest order. The piratas in the dark water were aggressive, mindless eating machines. But Sejun was desperate. He hunted them. Not with grace. With clumsy, frantic stabs. Each kill was a struggle in the mud. Each death granted him a sliver of experience points. A slow, grinding climb up a mountain of glass. He reached level 2. And with the level up came a cold realization. Balance. If he killed them all, he would starve next week. He could not be a glutton. He had to be a manager. He caught only what was necessary for protein, preserving the seed of the lake. He was farming the water now. The scent of roasting fish drifted through the stale air of the cave. It was a beacon. From the shadows, eyes appeared. The rabbit family. They had multiplied. The mother and father brought their brood, a small army of white fur and twitching noses. Sejun watched them. Most would see cute animals. Sejun saw refugees. These were farmer white rabbits. They were not fighters. They were laborers displaced from their home floor, hiding in this hidden zone, shivering in the dark just like him. They were not pests. They were colleagues. They ate the fish with the frantic energy of the starving. Sejun watched them chew, feeling this strange, hollow kinship. They were all just meat waiting to be processed by the tower. Days blurred. The rhythm of the cave became a heartbeat. Day. Blinked. Water. Sleep. And then, the darkness yielded. The garden responded to the blood, and sweat poured into the soil. The cherry tomato plants, grown from the seeds of his meager lunch, finally bore fruit. Clusters of red jewels hung heavy on the vines. In the monochrome world of the dungeon, the color red was violent. It was shocking. It was harvest time. Sejun picked the first fruit. The system analyzed it with cold precision. Magical cherry tomato. Reghi. It was not just food. It was a consumable item that decomposed fat and restored magical power. A treasure in the outside world. Here, it was breakfast. But the tower was a strict master. When Sejun picked a green, unripe tomato, the system sneered. It dismissed the fruit as a mere ingredient. The experience gain was negligible. Perfection was required. He reached level 4 through the harvest. He bit into a ripe tomato. The skin snapped. Flavor exploded. Sweet. Sour. The taste of sunlight that had never touched this cave. Sejun shared the bounty with the rabbits. As they ate, juice dripping down their chins, staining their white fur red, Sejun felt a wave of euphoria that had nothing to do with magic stats. It was the taste of being alive. For a moment, the oppressive ceiling of the cave dissolved. They were not prisoners. They were kings of a tiny, dirt kingdom. The rabbit children grew. They inherited the instincts of their parents. They began to carry leaves. They cleared debris. Sejun built a bed of woven leaves. He lay down. He slept deeply. He thought he had found a sustainable loop. He thought he had carved out a slice of peace in hell. But the tower manager did not care for peace. The manager cared for production. Sejun awoke to the chime. That hateful, cheerful sound. Quest. Offer 100 magical cherry tomatoes. Penalty for refusal. Death. The piece shattered. Sejun scrambled. He had no choice. The gun was back at his head. He harvested. His hands moved in a blur. He stripped the vines. He completed the quest, breathless, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. Reward. Harvest level 1. Another farming skill. Sejun applied it. And the horror of his situation deepened. Harvest level 1 was not just a utility. It was a cheat code for slavery. When his hand touched an unripe green tomato, the skill forced the fruit into maturity. It pulled the tomato into prime condition at the exact moment of harvest. He no longer had to wait for nature. He could strip the vines green, and his touch would turn them to gold. Efficiency skyrocketed. Experience points flowed in at a terrifying rate. But the tower manager was watching. The entity saw the increased production. It saw the numbers go up. And like any cruel master, it adjusted the quota. New quest. Offer 200 magical cherry tomatoes. Sejun cursed. He called the manager a thief to the empty air. But he handed over the crates. New quest. Offer 250. New quest. Offer 300. The demands accelerated. There was no pause. No breath. The manager was testing the structural integrity of its tool. Sejun was not a partner. He was a machine. He worked feverishly. Sweat poured down his back, stinging his eyes. He was feeding a bottomless pit. He was running on a treadmill that was speeding up, and the only destination was a heart attack. And then, the breaking point. The blue screen expanded. It loomed over him, blocking out the darkness, blocking out the rabbits, blocking out his sanity. Quest triggered. Offer 500 magical cherry tomatoes to the tower manager. Sejun froze. 500. A fortune. A king's ransom and magical resources. He scanned the window for the compensation. His eyes dropped to the bottom line. Reward. Bond. Refusal. Death. The silence in the cave became absolute. It was a physical way. Sejun stared at the text. All for nothing. The pretense of trade was gone. The mask had fallen off. The manager was no longer extorting him. It was enslaving him. If he accepted this, the next demand would be 1,000. Then 2,000. He would work until his spine snapped. He would work until his fingers bled and his mind fractured. And when he finally collapsed, the system would simply step over his corpse and wait for the next farmer. Fear was a cold knot in his stomach. But indignation. Indignation burned hotter than the sun he hadn't seen in months. Sejun looked at the invisible ceiling of the tower. He thought of the fireworks, taste of the tomatoes. He thought of the rabbits sleeping by the fire, trusting him to protect this fragile sanctuary. He thought of the life he had built from mud and water and sheer, stubborn refusal to die. He was a worm. He was a bug. He was nothing. But even a worm has a limit. No, Sejun said. His voice was quiet. It did not echo. It was swallowed by the dark. But it did not waver. A refuse. The system window froze. It shook violently. The text distorted, pixels bleeding into one another as if the machine itself was recoiling in shock. The cut had refused to turn. A new message flashed across the screen. The text carried a tone that the system had never displayed before. It wasn't a command. It was a reaction. The manager of the tower is surprised. For the first time since falling into this hell, Sejun had drawn a line in the dirt. He stood amidst his tomatoes. A level 4 farmer facing down about. He was armed with no sword. He held no shield. He was armed with the absolute, suicidal refusal to work for free. And the tower blinked. The blue light of the system window cuts through the darkness. It is an artificial, sickly glow against the damp stone of the cave. The text hanging in the air is not a request. It is a command. Quest. Offer 500 magical cherry tomatoes to the tower manager. Reward. None. Penalty for refusal. Death. The terms are simple. Give everything. Receive nothing. Or die. This is not trade. This is extortion. Sejun stares at the glowing letters. The air in the cave is cold, but the heat in his chest is sudden and violent. It is the heat of a cornered animal realizing the predator has no intention of letting it live, regardless of compliance. He speaks to the void. His voice is rough. It scrapes against the silence. He reminds the invisible tyrant of the tribute already paid. Hundreds of tomatoes. Gone. He reminds the tyrant of biology. He needs to eat. The rabbits need to eat. They are not machines fueled by mana and obedience. They are flesh and blood, fueled by calories and rest. The response from the tower is immediate. It is cold. It is bureaucratic. The manager does not care about hunger. The manager does not care about survival. It calls the hunger a personal problem. It demands the harvest. A dark, humorless smile touches Sejun's face. His problem. He looks at the onion stalk in his hand. It is a small thing. Green. Fragile. But it is the result of agony. It is the result of hauling water until his shoulders screamed. It is the result of tilling hard, unforgiving stone until his fingers bled. He guarded this life with his own. The system chimes again. The message is dismissive. It claims Sejun did nothing but scatter seeds. It claims the earth did the work. It claims the farmer is irrelevant. That is the mistake. The snap is loud in the quiet cave. It sounds like a bone breaking. Sejun tears the onion stalk in half. He destroys the fruit of his labor. If his sweat is meaningless, then the produce is trash. If his time is worth nothing, then the manager gets nothing. He looks at the glowing screen. He refuses. He tells the god of the tower to starve. The silence that follows is absolute. It is heavy. It presses against the eardrums. The system window flickers. The rhythm of the light changes. It is confused. It has never been told no. Sejun turns his back. He walks away. He holds the ruined onion like a weapon. The manager panics. The text scrolls faster. It asks if he is serious. It reminds him of death. It waves the threat of execution like a flag. Sejun ignores it. He sits by his small fire. He skewers a fish. He watches the flames dance. He speaks to the fire, not the window. He sets the terms of his reality. He will not serve a master who insults the work. If the manager wants the food, the manager must respect the sweat. The system argues. It claims authority. It claims ownership. Sejun counters with facts. He was kidnapped. He was enslaved. He was starved. And his employer is incompetent. The atmosphere in the cave shifts. The pressure drops. Shadows coalesce in the center of the room. They twist and boil, forming a shape that triggers primal fear in every living thing. A black dragon. The true form of the manager. It is a projection, but the malice is real. It looms over the small human. It opens jaws capable of crushing mountains. It roars. The sound should shatter Sejun's mind. It should turn his knees to water. Sejun does not blink. He does not look up. He reaches into his pocket. He pulls out a cherry tomato. He pops it into his mouth. He chews. The sound of the tomato skin popping is louder than the dragon's roar. The dragon freezes. The projection wavers. The intimidation has failed. The prey is not acting like prey. The prey is bored. The dragon shrinks. It diminishes. It becomes small, awkward, and embarrassed. The system window returns. It is flashing rapidly now. It is angry. It screams that Sejun is eating the merchandise. It threatens death again. But the threat is hollow. Sejun picks his ear. He is indifferent to the wrath of gods. He offers a crown. 5 tomatoes. Now. The rest. Later. Maybe. If he feels like it. The rabbits watch from the shadows. Their ears twitch. They smell the shift in power. Sejun holds out 5 red spheres to the empty air. The manager hesitates. The manager is the ruler of this world. But the manager is also desperate. It accepts the compromise. It takes the 5 tomatoes. It retreats. Sejun whispers a polite thank you. But as he turns back to the fire, the smirk returns. The ruler of the tower is a child. It can be bullied. It can be managed. Time bleeds away in the dark. 91 days. 3 months of stone and silence. Outside, the world changes. The sky turns the color of a fresh breeze. Purple. The 4th blue moon has risen. The air outside the cave vibrates with the screams of monsters. The lunar magic drives them into a frenzy. Sejun huddles in his shelter. He is wrapped in a blanket. He eats a tomato, seeking the small boost in magic power. He prays the monsters ignore his hole in the ground. He prays for the sun. But the blue moon does not just madden the beasts. It touches the earth. It touches the garden. A strange light fills the cave. It is not the cold blue of the system. It is the vibrant, pulsing azure of deep magic. Sejun throws off the blanket. He runs to the plot. The plants are changing. They are evolving in real time. The cherry tomato plant stands rigid. The fruit hanging from its branches are no longer red. They are sapphires. They glow with an inner light that hurts the eyes. The sweet potato vines pulse with energy. Sejun reaches out. His hand trembles. He digs. He pulls a sweet potato from the soil. It is heavy. Edom. Blue moon sweet potato. The system confirms the miracle. This is not food. This is power. Permanent increase in strength. Permanent increase in magic. He turns to the tomatoes. He plucks a blue sphere. He holds it up. It feels like holding a condensed star. The system is washing. The system is greedy. Pues. Offer blue moon sweet potatoes. Pues. Offer blue moon cherry tomatoes. Penalty. Death. The exclamation marks vibrate with excitement. The manager is drooling. Sejun laughs. It is a dry, scratching sound. He expected this. Greed is predictable. But Sejun is learning the rules of this game. He looks at the basket of red tomatoes in the corner. The leftovers from the previous harvest. He smiles. It is a wicked thing. He speaks to the air. He announces he will complete the pending tasks first. He lifts the basket of red tomatoes. He offers them to the void. The system is confused. It processes the input. It accepts the red tomatoes. Quest completed. The manager is distracted. The manager is counting the red coins, forgetting the blue diamonds. Sejun moves fast. He looks at the blue crops in his hands. The manager realizes the deception. It shouts. It asks what he is doing. Sejun mutters an apology that means nothing. He admits the manager is persistent. He promises to hand over the blue crops later. He asks for a delay. The manager bluffs. It grants the delay, pretending it is an act of mercy, not a tactical loss. Sejun agrees cheerfully. The screen vanishes. He is alone. He holds the prize. 1 blue tomato. 1 blue sweet potato. The question is not what to do with them. The question is how fast he can swallow them. He bites into the tomato. Flavor explodes. It is not just taste. It is sensation. Shockwaves of sweetness crash against his tongue. Magic floods his veins. His body feels lighter. Stronger. He looks at the sweet potato. It is raw. He cannot eat it yet. He builds the fire higher. He wraps the potato in onion leaves. He buries it in the coals. He sits cross-legged. He hums a tune. Waiting for food is the only true happiness in the dungeon. Steam rises. The scent of roasting sugar and earth fills the cave. It is a siren song. Ears appear at the entrance. Noses twitch. The rabbits have arrived. Their timing is supernatural. Sejun smiles. He pulls the potato from the fire. He unwraps the charred leaves. The flesh inside is golden and purple. It steams in the cold air. He holds it up like a trophy. He presents it to his family. The rabbits stare. They look at the potato. They look at Sejun. They look at each other. They do the math. 1 potato. 5 rabbits. 1 human. Sejun freezes. The smile slides off his face. He forgot the division. He forgot the hunger of others. The black rabbit, the leader, steps forward. His eyes are wide. They are wet with emotion. He looks at Sejun with profound worship. He misunderstands everything. He thinks Sejun waited. He thinks Sejun starved himself to share the single, precious gem. He sees a saint. Sejun feels a stab in his chest. It is guilt. Sharp and cold. He cannot tell them. He cannot admit he already ate the tomato. He cannot admit he is full of magic and greed. He is a fraud. The black rabbit gestures. Eat, he says. You first. It is a noble sacrifice. Sejun is trapped. If he refuses, he insults them. If he accepts, he is a glutton. He decides to play the part. He will take 1 bite. Just 1. Then he will share. He lifts the steaming potato. He opens his mouth. He takes a massive bite. Regret is instantaneous. Pain. Absolute, searing pain. The potato is not hot. It is molten. It is a piece of pure magic. And he has swallowed far more than he can control. The light that bled into the cave was not a greeting. It was an exposure. It illuminated the wreckage of a feeding frenzy, the scattered debris of appetites left unchecked. Sejun stood amidst the filth. He looked down at the creatures gathered at his feet. Rabbits. Soft. Weak. Driven entirely by the screaming void in their stomachs. They looked up at him with expectant eyes, waiting for the next handout. They did not understand the concept of scarcity. They did not understand that the sweet potato sprouts they had been devouring were not infinite. To them, the world was a mouth, and they were the teeth. Sejun raised a hand. The movement was slight, but the silence that followed was absolute. He did not shout. He did not plead. He simply altered the laws of their reality. The edict was given. Consumption of sprouts is terminated. The reaction was immediate. It was not anger. It was a biological collapse. The rabbits froze. Their long ears, usually twitching with nervous energy, fell limp against their skulls. Their bodies sag. The light died in their eyes. To a creature that lives only to eat, the prohibition was a death sentence. They looked at the green leaves. They looked at Sejun. They saw a tyrant. Sejun watched their spirits break. He needed this. A broken tool is useless, but a tool that thinks it is free is dangerous. He needed a middle ground. He waited for the despair to bottom out. Then, he offered the leash. He spoke of a trade. Labor for luxury. If they seized their gluttony and turned their claws to the earth, if they buried the food instead of eating it, he would grant them a taste of something greater. He described the future harvest. He described a sweetness that would eclipse the raw sprouts. He lied with the confidence of a god. Or perhaps it was the truth. It didn't matter. The eyes of the rabbits changed. The despair evaporated, replaced by a manic, vibrating intensity. The husband rabbit. The mother rabbit. They turned to their offspring. The gloom was gone. Now, there was only the mission. Sejun had successfully weaponized their hunger. The field became a factory. Sejun directed the mother rabbit to the green onions. He pointed to a single stalk. Leave it. He needed seeds. He was thinking in timelines that these creatures could not comprehend. He was planning for a season that did not exist in this dark hole. The rabbits moved to the dirt. They were born for this. Their paws were organic shovels, blurring as they tore into the soil. They planted the sprouts with a speed that mocked human biology. Sejun watched the efficiency. Then, a breach in protocol. The younger rabbit, overcome by the scent of the fresh greens, hesitated. Its instincts overrode the mandate. It lowered its head, mouth opening to sever a leaf. The mother rabbit did not hesitate. She did not shudder. She did not warn. She struck. A sharp, violent blow to the skull. The child reeled back, stunned. The mother returned to digging. There was no sympathy. The hierarchy of the warren was older than the tower. It was written in blood and discipline. The law of the farm was absolute. Sejun turned away. The violence was efficient. It required no intervention. He moved to the cherry tomatoes. The vines were heavy, sagging under the weight of the red spheres. He reached out. His hands moved through the foliage. Smack. Twist. Pull. The system flooded his vision with text. Proficiency increased. Job experience gained. Level up. He was now a level 8 tower farmer. The numbers were meaningless. A level 8 farmer dies just as quickly as a level 1 farmer when a monster decides to feed. But the numbers represented control. In this small patch of dirt, he was a king. He looked at the red fruit in his palm. He could eat it. He could crush it into his mouth and let the juice run down his chin. But he was building an empire. He needed to buy loyalty. He gathered the dry brush. He struck the spar. The fire caught, casting long, dancing shadows against the cave walls. He took the bones of the pyre in his sharp, serrated needles of calcium and pierced the tomatoes. He suspended them over the heat. The skin blistered. The juice boiled inside the flesh. The sugars caramelized, turning the acidic scent into something rich and heavy. The smell drifted through the cave. It was a hook. The rabbits stopped digging. They turned, their noses twitching, pulled toward the fire by an invisible chain. Eye above. Miles of stone and darkness away. In a chamber filled with the horde of a fallen age, something massive shifted. Alien Fatani. The great black dragon. She was the apex. The master of the tower. And she was bored. Her reptilian eyes narrowed. She held a tiny object between claws the size of size. A skewer. Stolen from the floor below. She looked at it with disdain. Human garbage. She placed it in her mouth. Pain. The heat exploded against her tongue. She recoiled, a hiss escaping her throat, smoke curling from her nostrils. She spat the object out. Disgusting. But then, the heat faded, and the ghost of the flavor remained. Sweetness. Acidity. A richness that her raw diet of manna and meat had never provided. Her pupils dilated. She summoned the crystal sphere. The glass twirled, revealing the lower depths. She saw the human. Sejun sat in the dirt, surrounded by the vermin. He was eating the red fruit. The rabbits were chewing with expressions of pure ecstasy. Then, she saw him reach for the sweet potatoes. A fire ignited in the dragon's chest. It was not hunger. It was insult. How dare they? How dare these insects feast while she, the ruler of this domain, sat in the shadows with a burnt tongue? It was theft. It was treason. She needed to remind them of their place. Sejun pulled the vine from the earth. The soil gave way, revealing the cluster of heavy, purple tubers. Strength sweet potatoes. Braggy. Garbage in the grand scheme of the tower, but cold in this cave. They offered permanent strength. They offered digestion. He counted them. 5 per root. Abound he. He saw loose sprouts on the ground. Waste. He pressed them into the soil. Sowing skill activated. He realized the truth. He could not just manage. He had to bleed into the soil himself. The system rewarded sweat, not just oversight. He opened his mouth to shout a command. The air in front of him shimmered. A blue window slammed into existence, blocking his view. It was not a notification. It was a shakedown. Quest triggered. Objective. Offer 1 roasted strength sweet potato to the tower manager. Reward. Meon. Penalty for failure. Death. Sejun stared at the text. The silence in the cave deepened. The rabbits continued to chew, oblivious to the guillotine hovering over their master's neck. The tower manager. The dragon. She was watching. She was demanding tribute. And she was offering nothing in return. Sejun looked at the pile of potatoes. He had 1 roasted tuber left. The rest were raw. He looked at the blue screen. Most men would tremble. Most men would fall to their knees and offer the food with shaking hands, grateful to keep their heads. Sejun was not most men. He was a merchant of survival. He spoke to the empty air. Is that it? His voice was flat. I give you everything I have, and I get nothing. The system flashed red. Warning. The tower manager is losing patience. Sejun didn't flinch. He held the potato tight. If you want the goods, he whispered, looking up at the stone ceiling, you pay the price. He waited. It was suicide. Seconds ticked by. The weight of the dragon's gaze pressed down on the cave, heavy enough to crack bone. Then, the text rippled. Quest updated. Reward. Job-related skill. Sejun's lip curled. A smile that didn't reach his eyes. Even guts could be haggled with. He held the potato out. Deal. The food vanished from his hand. Quest complete. Skill acquired. Seed store level 1. Sejun's heart hammered against his ribs. A store. He activated the skill. A holographic interface ballooned in the darkness. Rows of empty shelves. A transaction history of 0. He checked his balance. 0. And broke, he muttered. In a trade. The system changed. New user bonus. 1 tower coin deposited. Sejun stared at the currency. 1 coin. Outside, in the world of men, this was a retirement fund. This was power. This was murder money. Here, it was lunch money. The inventory refreshed. 3 items. Red pepper seeds. Cabbage seeds. Carrot seeds. Price. 0. 1 coin each. Sejun analyzed the board. Peppers and cabbage. The ingredients of his homeland. The soul of his goosing. But he had no salt. He had no chairs. He had no time. He looked at the third option. Carrots. He looked down at the rabbits. They were watching him. They sensed the shift in the atmosphere. They sensed the potential. Do you want? Sejun paused. He let the word hang there. Carrots. The effect was nuclear. The rabbits didn't just cheer. They detonated. Their eyes dilated until they were entirely black. They began to vibrate. They hopped with a frenzy that bordered on seizure. One of the infants launched itself through the air, latching onto Sejun's leg, screaming silently in a rapture of anticipation. It wasn't hunger anymore. It was addiction. Sejun tapped the screen. Purchase confirmed. 1,000 carrot seeds acquired. A red pouch dropped into his hand. He felt the weight of it. He had survived the day. And in the tower, survival always comes with interest. The darkness of the tower is not empty. It is heavy. It presses against the skin like deep water, waiting for a structural failure. In this suffocating depth, Park Sejun had carved out a delusion. He called it a farm. He called it a home. He lay on a cold, flat rock, the damp air clinging to his clothes, and allowed himself the luxury of a mistake. He closed his eyes. He thought he was safe. A baby rabbit slept on his chest, a small ball of warmth in a world of cold stone. Sejun breathed in the scent of soil and carrots, convincing himself that his greatest enemy was the fatigue of manual labor. He believed that the hierarchy of this cave had been settled. The tower does not tolerate comfort. It corrects arrogance with terror. The silence of the cave was not broken. It was violated. A sound began. Low. Vibrating. A frequency that rattled the teeth before the ears even registered it. Voom. It was the sound of heavy wings beating against thick, stagnant air. Sejun opened his eyes. The piece of the carrot field evaporated, replaced instantly by the cold clarity of a prey animal realizing it has been spotted. Hovering above him was a creature that defied the laws of aerodynamics. Yellow. Black stripes. Fuzzy. At a glance, it was a honeybee. If you ignored the fact that it was the size of a human head. If you ignored the stinger that looked like a gagged obsidian dagger. Sejun froze. The human instinct is to freeze. The hope that the predator's vision is based on movement. The tower's system interface materialized in the air. A blue rectangle of judgment. Poisoned honeybee. The name alone was a threat, but the text below it was a death sentence. Description. A carnivorous insect. It uses a highly potent neurotoxin to paralyze monsters before consuming their flesh. Carnivorous. Flesh. The words hung in the air, blowing with indifferent malice. Sejun's blood ran cold. The logic of his farm, the peaceful ecosystem of rabbits and piranhas, shattered. This was not a pollinator. This was a butcher. He was a farmer. He had a shovel. He had a bag of seeds. He did not have a weapon capable of piercing the exoskeleton of a flying tank. Panic is a clumsy thing. Sejun scrambled backward, his heels slipping on the mossy rock. He fell off his makeshift bed, hitting the dirt with a pathetic thud. He shouted. He begged. I have no meat. His voice cracked, echoing off the damp walls. I am just skin and bones. There is no flavor here. Go away. He shielded his face with his arms. A futile gesture. If that stinger connected, it would go through his forearm and into his skull without slowing down. He curled into a ball, the universal position of the defeated. He waited for the puncture. He waited for the toxin to freeze his nerves. He waited for the sound of mandibles tearing into soft tissue. The silence. The buzzing continued, but it did not get closer. 1 second passed. Then 10. The anticipation of pain is often worse than the injury, but the injury never arrived. Sejun lowered his arms. He peered through the gap in his fingers, trembling. The monster was ignoring him. The poison honeybee, the scourge of the lower floors, the carnivorous hunter of beasts, was clinging to a timid plant. It was nuzzling a yellow blossom. It was drinking nectar. Sejun blinked. The terror in his chest stalled, replaced by a profound confusion. The system had lied. Or rather, the system had exaggerated. The creature was not hunting for flesh. It was thirsty. Sejun watched the bee move from flower to flower. Its movements were precise, almost delicate. It treated the fragile cherry tomato blossoms with the reverence of a starving man handling fine china. Sejun realized his status in the food chain had shifted. He was not prey. He was furniture. To a creature of this tier, Sejun was not worth the caloric expenditure required to kill him. He was background noise. Irrelevant. The fear evaporated, leaving behind a cold, pragmatic opportunism. Sejun was a survivor. Survivors do not hold grudges against things that can kill them. They exploit them. He stood up. He brushed the dirt from his knees. He walked toward the tomato patch. He grabbed a stem, holding a cluster of fresh flowers toward the hovering bees. Here, he whispered. Eat this. The bee paused. It looked at him with compound eyes that reflected 1,000 distorted images of a terrified farmer. Then, it accepted the offering. It latched onto the new flowers, humming a lower, more content note. Sejun watched it work. A realization dawned on him. He had been hand-pollinating these plants. He had been doing the work of an insect, wasting hours of his life. Now, the insect was here. A smile crept onto his face. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a manager finding a desperate intern. Good, Sejun muttered. Work hard. The assassin had been demoted. It was now an employee. Only after the buzzing faded into the distance did the rabbits return. They poked their heads out from behind the rocks, their noses twitching. They looked at Sejun, then at the sky, then back at Sejun. They were cowards. Sejun scolded them. He called them traitors. But his voice lacked heat. In the tower, loyalty is a luxury. Survival is mandatory. The family had simply grown by one. Time in the cave is not measured in hours. It is measured in cycles of hunger and harvest. Day 120 arrived. The routine had solidified into a law. The poison honeybee was no longer a visitor. It was a fixture. It arrived with the false dawn of the cave, worked the fields with mechanical efficiency, and vanished into the dark forest when the light faded. Sejun did not ask where it lives. He did not ask if it had a hive. One does not ask the executioner what he does on his weekends. The arrangement was purely transactional, and on the 120th day, the transaction yielded a bonus. Lunch. Sejun sat by the fire, grilling a green onion. The smell of charred vegetable filled the small space. The bee hovered closer. It seemed interested. Sejun watched it. The bee hovered over the grilled onion. It opened its mouth. A thick, golden liquid dripped down. It coated the charred onion in a glistening layer of amber. Oni. The system window popped up, identifying the item. Onion. Sejun stared at it. He was a man starving for sugar, starving for flavor. He picked up the onion. The heat radiated into his fingers. He took a bite. The flavor was violence. Sweetness exploded in his mouth, a sharp, shocking contrast to the savory char of the onion. It was rich. It was heavy. It tasted like sunlight preserved in liquid form. For a moment, the damp cave disappeared. For a moment, Sejun was not a prisoner in a stone box. He was a king dining on gold. He lacked. He shared the meal with the rabbits. They covered their faces in the sticky substance, intoxicated by the sugar. The bee buzzed, a sound that might have been pride. It was a good day. It was the bait. The tower gives you a taste of happiness so that the despair tastes bitter by comparison. Day 121. The atmosphere shifted. The air in the cave grew heavy. Static electricity prickled against the skin. The silence was different today. It was not empty. It was expectant. The poison honeybee did not come to work. Sejun stood in the field, looking at the empty air. The absence of the giant insect was the first warning. Animals know when the weather turns. Monsters know when the world is about to break. Sejun looked up at the opening of the crater high above. The light was changing. The blue moon was coming. Sejun knew the rules. The blue moon is a cycle of madness. It is a time when the mana in the atmosphere becomes volatile, twisting the minds and bodies of those exposed to it. He moved with the frantic energy of a man who remembers he is mortal. He harvested the tomatoes. He packed the supplies. He prepared the bunker. Get inside. He shouted to the rabbits. The rabbit family was huddled near the entrance of the sleeping cave. The mother, the father, the children. They were vibrating. Not shivering from cold. Vibrating from an internal frequency that was trying to tear them apart. Sejun waved his arms. Hurry. The light is hitting the floor. The parent rabbits looked at him. Their eyes were wide, dark pools of anxiety. Then, they looked at their children. The mother rabbit leaned down. She nuzzled the babies. She licked their ears. The father did the same. It was a tender moment. A goodbye. Sejun felt a knot form in his stomach. What are you doing? Get inside. The parents turned away from the children. They turned away from the safety of the cave. They looked out into the open cavern, where the blue light was beginning to pool like rising water. And they ran. They sprinted away from safety. They sprinted away from their family. Sejun screamed. "Where are you going? You'll die out there." He took a step forward to chase them, but stopped. He couldn't catch them. They were blurring across the rocky ground, desperate to put distance between themselves and their offspring. The baby rabbits stood at the entrance, waving their small paws. They did not cry. They seemed to understand a cruel biological imperative that Sejun did not. Then, the blue moon crested the crater. The light flooded the cavern. It was not a soft moonlight. It was a cold, harsh azure radiation. It washed over the running parents. Sejun watched, his breath caught in his throat. The run faltered. The bodies of the rabbits ceased. This was not an abandonment. It was a quarantine. The parents had not run to save themselves. They had run to protect the children from what they were about to become. Under the cold gaze of the blue moon, the biology of the cute, fluffy creatures began to rewrite itself. Bones cracked. The sound echoed through the silent cave. Snack. Brak. Thaw. Their fur bristled, turning from soft white to a jagged, spiked gray. Their muscles swelled, tearing against the limits of their skin, bulging into unnatural, hulking shapes. The innocent, round eyes vanished. In their place, crimson lights ignited. Glowing. Hateful. They stopped being rabbits. The cave did not smell of death. Not yet. It smelled of ozone. The air was heavy, thick with the crimson pressure of the blue moon. A suffocating weight that pressed against the lungs, turning every breath into a negotiated settlement with gravity. Sejun was on his knees. Above him, the shadows writhed. Giants. Monstrous distortions of nature that had grown from the darkness, their silhouettes scraping the ceiling of the cavern. They were not merely large. They were impossible. Their presence violated the physics of the enclosed space. Sejun closed his eyes. He waited for the teeth. He waited for the snapping of bone, the wet tear of flesh, the final, frantic beat of his own heart. He waited for the silence that comes after the scream. But the silence arrived first. It was not the silence of the grave. It was the silence of a balloon losing its air. A soft, shifting sound. Like sand sliding through an hourglass. The red light flickered. Died. The oppressive heat vanished, replaced by the damp, cool stagnation of the cave. Sejun opened his eyes. The giants were gone. In their place, scattered across the dirt floor like discarded toys, were the rabbits. Small. White. Fluffy. They looked up at him, their noses twitching with an innocence that felt almost insulting given the terror of the last few minutes. They let out a soft cry. Phew. It shattered the tension like a hammer through glass. Sejun didn't laugh. He didn't cheer. He simply collapsed. The adrenaline drained from his system, leaving him hollowed out, a husk of exhausted meat on the cold stone. It wasn't an attack. It wasn't an invasion. It was a birthday party. The system was mocking him. The blue moon wasn't a herald of the apocalypse. It was a biological milestone. A growth spurt. He had spent hours trembling before a biological plot. He pulled the creatures close. Tears pricked his eyes not of joy, but of the pathetic, overwhelming relief of the survivor. He had prepared to be eaten. Instead, he was forced to be a parent. But the tower does not give gifts without altering the terms of engagement. The rabbits stood. They did not simply return to their routine. The air around their paws began to warp. Light gathered, dense and golden, weaving itself into physical matter. Evolution is rarely subtle in this place. The light solidified. Metal clinked against stone. One rabbit held a sickle. Another, a watering can. A third, a shovel. The interface flashed in Sejun's vision. Cold. Blue. Indifferent. Farmer rabbit. They had been conscripted. The system had recognized the agriculture of the cave and optimized the workforce. It was efficiency. It was survival. But the tower has a twisted sense of humor. The black rabbit stepped forward. The light around its paws did not form the delicate curve of a sickle or the utility of a hoe. It formed a block. Heavy. Brutal. A massive wooden hammer materialized, thudding into the dirt, with enough weight to crack the ground. The interface blinked. Warrior rabbit. The hierarchy of the cave shifted instantly. The white rabbits moved with newfound purpose. They were machines of cultivation. They tilled. They pruned. They watered. Their movements were synchronized, a ballet of agricultural labor. And then, there was the warrior. He stood alone. He gripped the handle of his hammer, his eyes wide with a desperate need to belong. He watched the others working, creating, nurturing. He wanted to help. He approached the tomato plants. The fruit was ripe, heavy with juice. The warrior raised his hand to assist in the harvest. He moved. But he was not built for the gentle touch. He was built to shatter skulls. The hammer swung. It was a twitch, barely a motion, but the mass of the weapon obeyed the laws of momentum. Splat. The sound was wet and final. The tomato didn't just break. It ceased to exist. It was reduced to a red smear of pulp and seeds, painting the ground in a mockery of violence. The warrior black rabbit froze. He looked at the red stain. He looked at his hammer. His shoulders slumped. The weapon dragged in the dirt. He was a creature of destruction standing in a sanctuary of creation. He was a gun in a nursery. Obsolete. Sejun watched this from the shadows. He saw the despair taking root. A lesser man would have pitied the creature. A lesser man would have told it to sit in the corner and wait for a war that might never come. But Sejun was not a lesser man. He was the apex of this cave. And an apex predator does not waste resources. He did not see a failure. He saw a misallocation of assets. The farm required a scalpel. The food supply required a sledgehammer. Sejun stood up. He didn't speak. He simply gestured. Follow. The warrior dragged his hammer, his head low. They walked past the rows of thriving crops. Away from the light, down into the deeper recesses of the cavern. To the underground pond. The water was black, still as oil. Beneath the surface, the pyrant has circled. Vicious, mindless, eating machines that had terrorized the ecosystem since the beginning. Sejun lit a torch. The fire reflected on the water, a beacon in the dark. The water rippled. They were coming. Drawn to the light like moths to a flame, hungry for flesh. Sejun stepped back. He looked at the warrior. He pointed at the water. Kill. The rabbit looked up. His eyes shifted. The confusion vanished. The despair evaporated. This was not a tomato. This was an enemy. The water erupted. A fish leaped, jaws snapping, aiming for the light. The warrior did not hesitate. He didn't need to be gentle. He didn't need to be careful. He swung. The air whistled. A low, terrifying hum of displaced atmosphere. Crack. The sound echoed through the cave system. The hammer connected with the fish in mid-air. There was no resistance. The creature was stunned instantly, its momentum reversed with violent prejudice. It flew out of the air and slammed onto the rocky shore, twitching, finish. Another jump. Crack. Another. Crack. It was rhythmic. It was industrial. It was beautiful. The warrior black rabbit was a blur of motion. He was painting the shore with stunned fish. Violence, when applied correctly, is just another form of harvesting. That night, the smell of ozone was gone. It was replaced by the smell of roasting meat. The fish sizzled over the fire. The skin blackened and critted. The meat fell from the bone. The warrior sat by the fire, his hammer resting by his side. He ate with the voracious appetite of one who has earned his key. He was no longer a mistake. He was essential. The ecosystem had balanced itself. Time in the tower is a flat circle. 125 days. The routine had calcified. Wait. Farm. Eat. Sleep. Repeat. But stagnation is death. To survive, one must expand. The seed store reopened. Sejun stood before the holographic interface. The blue light washed over his face, highlighting the exhaustion etched into his skin. He had waited for this window. He needed better crops. He needed nutrients. He looked at the prices. His eyes narrowed. The economy of the tower was more ruthless than its monsters. Inflation. A silent killer. He checked his balance. 0. 9 tower coins. It was pathetic. It was an insult. A fraction of a currency that dictated his life or death. He scrolled through the options. Sweet potatoes. Too expensive. Potatoes. Out of reach. The nutritious, high-yield crops he needed were locked behind a paywall of poverty. He was left with the scraps. Waxy corn seeds. 5 seeds for a pittance. It was defeat in the form of a grain. Form. It filled the stomach, but it did not nourish the soul. It was peasant food. Sejun clenched his jaw. He had no choice. He needed capital. He needed leverage. He remembered the quest. The haste. The Blue Tower incident. He had technically participated. He had technically aided the administration. He looked up at the ceiling of the cave, shouting into the void. Manager. I reward. The response was immediate and cold. A text box appeared. The reward is held in trust. Condition for release. Adulthood. Sejun blinked. He was human. He was grown. Define adulthood, he growled. 300 years of age. Violence. The absolute, crushing absurdity of bureaucracy. The tower manager was likely an elf, or a dragon, or something timeless and arrogant that viewed human lifespans as rounding errors. 300 years. He would be dust. His bones would be fossilized in this cave before he saw a single coin of that reward. It was a scam. A rigged game designed to keep the labor force desperate and hungry. Sejun felt the rage boil into his chest. He wanted to scream. He wanted to burn the crops. But anger burns calories. And calories cost money. He swallowed the rage. He buried it deep, where it would simmer into a cold, hard resentment. He pressed the button. Purchased 200 waxy corn seeds. He took the small consolation of 5 mileage points. A pitiful rebate for his dignity. Life moved on. It had to. The corn went into the ground. The fish came out of the water. He even expanded his workforce. The poison honeybee. A creature of venom and fly. Sejun offered it residence. A permanent home in exchange for pollination. The bee accepted. The farm grew. The cave was peaceful. But peace is a lie. It is merely the pause between threats. The sound came from the bushes. Rustle. It wasn't the wind. There is no wind this deep underground. The reaction was instantaneous. The warrior moved. The darkness of the tower does not negotiate. It consumes. It takes the weak, shews them into past, and smears them across the stone floors as a warning to the next batch of fools. In this suffocating void, silence is the baseline. Noise is a luxury. Park Sejun stood in the center of this silence. He did not look like a hero. He looked like a man who had stared into the abyss and decided to farm it. Opposite him stood an intruder. It was not a dragon. It was not a demon lord. It was a cat. An orange bipedal cat with a backpack, trying desperately to stand on 2 legs and project the aura of a serious businessman. This was Theo, a wandering merchant. The hierarchy was established instantly. Sejun stood still. His breathing was regulated. His heart rate was slow. He was the apex of this small, damp ecosystem. Theo, however, vibrated. It was a subtle thing. A twitch in the whiskers. A rapid shifting of the pupils. The creature claimed to be a professional, introducing himself with rehearsed courtesy. But Sejun saw the truth. The cat wasn't looking at Sejun. He was looking at Sejun's inventory. The predator knows when prey is hungry. Hunger makes the eyes wide. It makes the hands shake. It turns a rational mind into a slave of the gut. Sejun didn't need a sword to dismantle this opponent. He needed a fire. Sejun sat. He did not speak. He simply retrieved a fish from his stockpile. A blue-scaled river fish, cold and stiff. He skewered it. He placed it over the flames. The sound of sizzling fat broke the silence. Then came the smell. In the stagnant air of the dungeon, the scent of roasting meat is not just food. It is violence. It assaulted Theo's nostrils. It punched through his dignity. The merchant tried to hold his ground. He muttered about professionalism. He stated, with a trembling voice, that a vendor does not consume the client's goods. Sejun flipped the fish. The skin crackled. Golden brown. Perfect. The cat's resolve shattered. It wasn't a gradual decline. It was a collapse. Instinct took the wheel. Theo lunged. The merchant vanished, replaced by a starving animal. He tore into the fish. Hot flesh. Oil. Bones. He didn't chew. He inhaled. One fish. Pun. Sejun watched. His expression remained flat. He put another fish on the fire. Theo ate that one too. Then a third. A fourth. A fifth. The pile of bones grew. The cat's stomach expanded. Only when the biological imperative was silenced did the brain turn back on. Theo leaned back, burping, wiping grease from his orange fur. The tension left his body. He was full. He was safe. He was an idiot. He remembered his script. He sat up, adjusted his backpack, and cleared his throat. He demanded an entrance fee. A transaction cost. 0.5 tower coins to view his exclusive wares. The silence returned. Heavier this time. Sejun stared at the cat. The audacity was almost impressive. This creature had just consumed a significant portion of the farm's protein yield, and now he wanted to charge admission to his own failure. Sejun did not yell. He did not threaten. He simply pointed a finger at the pile of bones. The dead exists. The logic was cold. You want coins? Fine. Pay for the meal first. Behind Sejun, the shadows shifted. The rabbits moved. They were not pets. They were labor. They were muscle. Their hands tightened around their hammers. They did not need to be told what to do. They understood the food chain. If the boss gave the signal, the cat would become fertilizer. Theo sensed the shift. The fur on his neck rose. He realized, too late, that he was not the one in charge of this negotiation. Sejun, however, was pragmatic. Violence is expensive. Information is cheap. He reached into his pocket. He paid the fee. A small investment. He wanted to see what this incompetence looked like in merchandise form. Theo's eyes filled with tears. Gratitude. Relief. He thought he had won a negotiation. He had actually just sold his soul for a coin. With the flourish of a magician revealing a dove, Theo opened his pack. He laid out his treasures on the dirt floor. He spoke of magic. He spoke of ancient preservation spells. He spoke of elemental summoning. A vessel that maintains temperature through mana, Theo announced. A fan that commands the wind, he proclaimed. A pouch that generates eternal heat, he promised. 5 coins each. A king's ransom. Sejun looked down. He did not see magic. He saw plastic. He saw a vacuum-insulated tumbler. He saw a battery-operated handheld fan. He saw a disposable hand warmer. To the creatures of the tower, these were artifacts of unknown power. To a human from Earth, this was the clearance aisle of a convenience store. This was garbage. Theo was beaming. He was proud. He was waiting for the awe. Sejun picked up the fan. He pressed the button. A low whine. The plastic blades twitched. They spun. Once. Twice. Slowly. Painfully. Then, they stopped. The silence that followed was absolute. The mana is gone, Sejun said. He wasn't speaking of magic. He was speaking of a double battery that had died 3 months ago. Theo froze. His world didn't just crack. It evaporated. He looked at the fan. He looked at Sejun. The realization hit him like a physical blow. The items were useless. The magic was a lie. He hadn't just failed a sale. He had been scammed. The facade of the merchant dissolved completely. Theo collapsed into the dirt. The tears returned, but these weren't tears of gratitude. They were tears of total defeat. And then, the confession. The predator listens when the prey bleeds. Sejun stood over the weeping cat and listened to the pathetic history of Theo. He wasn't a void traveler. He wasn't a veteran of the markets. He was a local. A villager from the 75th floor. A neutral zone. A place of peace. He had been in love. Her name was Meryl. But love in this world is a transaction. Theo was poor. He offered her rice fish. Small, bony, pathetic rice fish. His rival was rich. The son of a tycoon. The rival offered salmon. High quality, fatty, pink salmon. Meryl chose the salmon. It was a biological calculation. Theo had been outbid. Humiliated, broken. Theo had stolen his own savings. 50 coins. He bought a merchant license. He swore to return as a tycoon. He swore to buy the tower. He swore to make them regret the salmon. But the tower eats the knife. A goblin merchant named Scaran had found him. Scaran saw the desperation. Scaran saw the stupidity. He sold Theo the earth trash at inflated prices. He told him they were legendary artifacts. He gave him a map to a hidden market. The map led here. To the void. To the middle of nowhere. Scaran had taken the gold. He had sent the cat to die. Theo wept. He was bankrupt. He had no stock. He had no way home. He was a failure of evolution. Sejun watched the cat cry. A normal man feels pity. A normal man offers a tissue. Sejun felt opportunity. He looked at the sobbing mess of orange fur. He didn't see a sad cat. He saw a license. Theo could move. Theo could cross the floor boundaries. Theo could access the markets that Sejun, trapped in this dungeon, could never reach. Sejun's mind clicked into place like the bolt of a rifle. The earth items were trash here. But Sejun had crops. He had magical cherry tomatoes. He had blue moon fish. He had products that actually held value. He didn't need a warrior. He didn't need a mage. He needed a mule. And here was a mule that was desperate, indebted, and stupid enough to be loyal. Sejun knelt. The movement was slow. Deliberate. He reached out a hand. He did not smile. Predators do not smile before they bite. But he softened his voice. He injected a calculated warmth into his tone. Stop crying, Sejun said. Theo looked up, snot running down his nose, eyes wide with confusion. Sejun offered another fish. We can work this out, Sejun lied. Or rather, he framed the truth in a way that sounded like salvation. He proposed a partnership. Theo saw a savior. He saw a strong, kind human pulling him out of the abyss. He saw a second chance at life, a way to redeem himself, a way to maybe, one day, afford the salmon. Sejun saw logistics network. He saw a vehicle to export his goods. He saw a creature he could control with roasted fish and head pats. He saw a pipeline to the outside world. Theo grasped Sejun's hand. He shook it with fervor. He pledged his loyalty. He wagged his tail. Sejun looked at the cat. The deal was struck. The contract was sealed in grease and tears. The cat thought he had found a friend. Sejun knew better. He had just acquired a delivery truck. It just happened to purr. The darkness of the dungeon does not care about tears. It absorbs sound. It swallows hope. It is an indifferent void where the weak are composed, and the strong are merely delayed composed. In the center of this suffocating gloom sat a creature that had forgotten its nature. An orange tabby. A bipedal cat. A merchant by trade, or at least, by the lie he told himself to sleep at night. His name was Theo. He was currently vibrating with the frequency of absolute failure. Snot dripped from his nose. His shoulders heaved with the pathetic rhythm of a sob story that the tower had heard 1,000,000 times before. He was a wandering merchant with a license to traverse the floors, a passport to wealth. Yet here he sat in the dirt, paralyzed by his own incompetence. He had been scammed. He had been robbed. He was a biological dead end. Sejun watched him. Sejun did not see a crying animal. He did not feel pity. Pity is a luxury for those who have full bellies and secure borders. Sejun had neither. He looked at the weeping orange fur ball and saw a broken gear in a machine that he intended to build. He saw a logistics network waiting to be seized. The silent stretch. It was heavy, pressing down on the cat's ears, amplifying the sound of his own pathetic sniffling. Sejun moved. He didn't offer a tissue. He didn't offer a hug. He offered a partnership. But let us be clear about the definition of that word. In the dictionary of the apex predator, a partnership is simply a polite term for the relationship between a hand and a hammer. Theo looked up, his eyes wide, wet, and stupid. He tried to resist. He mumbled about his failures. He admitted, with a self-deprecation that was almost impressive, that he was garbage. He claimed he couldn't sell water to a man dying of thirst. Sejun didn't care about Theo's skill. He didn't need a master of trade. He needed a mule. He needed a warm body with a guild license and a functioning pair of legs. He began to speak. His voice was low, a monotone drone that bypassed the cat's logical centers and went straight to his ego. He framed the exploitation as a union of undervalued talents. He painted a picture where Theo wasn't a victim, but a diamond in the rough. It was a lie, of course. But it was a comfortable lie. And while Sejun spun the web of words, the rabbits moved in the background. They were silent. Efficient. They brought out the fire. They brought out the fish. The smell hit the air. Roasting meat. The sharp, savory scent of bluefish crisping over an open flame. It cut through the dungeon's stale air like a blade. Theo's nose twitched. The weeping stopped. The biological imperative took over. His pupils dilated, shifting from the sorrow of bankruptcy to the singular focus of a starving predator. Sejun watched the shift. He knew the negotiation was already over. Now, it was just a matter of setting the price. They sat on bamboo chairs. A mockery of civilization in the dark. Sejun laid out the terms. A consignment deal. Theo would take the inventory, haul it to the upper floors, sell it, and keep a commission. 3 to 5%. Theo's ears flattened against his skull. He was incompetent, yes. But he was not brain dead. The math began to churn in his little cat brain. 3%. After travel expenses. After the risk of getting mugged by goblins again. The trauma of the tower's economy washed over him. The memory of wolves taking his inventory. The memory of goblins laughing at him. The percentage was an insult. It was a guarantee of poverty. The tears began to well up again. The resistance was forming. Sejun saw the wall going up. He didn't push. He didn't argue. He simply pivoted. He understood something that Theo did not. For a creature driven by the lizard brain, abstract numbers are terrifying. Percent is a concept. Calories are a reality. Sejun changed the currency. A salary, Sejun said. Send grilled fish per week. The silence returned. Theo froze. The math vanished. The image of 10 golden, crispy fish floated in the air before him. 10 fish. Guaranteed. Regardless of sales. Regardless of the market. Greed warred with fear in the cat's eyes. It was a violent struggle. Sejun waited. He let the silence steep. He let the hunger gnaw at the cat's resolve. 20. Sejun said. The cat wavered. He was leaning forward. He was practically vibrating. Sejun delivered the killing blow. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't smile. He just dropped the hammer. 25 grilled fish per week. And he paused. Whenever you visit the farm, you eat as much as you want. The sound of a soul breaking is usually quiet. In this case, it was the sound of Theo's dignity evaporating into the ether. The defenses of wandering merchant Theo crumbled. The memories of past scams, the fear of the wolves, the logic of economics, it all dissolve. Unlimited food. The logic of the stomach is absolute. It overrides survival instincts. It overrides pride. Sejun produced a piece of paper. He produced a kill. He did not wait for the cat to think. Thinking is dangerous for business. Theo pressed his paw onto the paper. The trap snapped shut. The paper glowed. A blue, ethereal light bathed the dungeon. The tower itself acknowledged the transaction. This was not a handshake. This was a system-recognized lifetime distribution contract. Magical. Binding. Permanent. Theo blinked, the afterimage of the blue light fading from his eyes. He looked down at the paper. He began to read the fine print. It is always in the fine print that the devil resides. Clause 4. A special condition inserted by Sejun. It required Theo to use a specific dialect when conducting business. He had to end every sentence with a specific sound. A cute sound. A degrading, infantile meow. Theo looked at Sejun. He felt the heat of embarrassment rising under his fur. It was a humiliation. A degradation of his professional standing. Sejun merely smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a man who knows that in the brutal ecosystem of the tower, cuteness is a psychological weapon of mass destruction. The product, Sejun said. The rabbits brought it forward. A basket of red spheres. Cherry tomatoes. Theo stared at them. His whiskers twitched with professional disdain. He activated his merchant appraisal skill. The text floated in the air. Magic cherry tomato. Effect. Increases magic power by 0. 1 for 10 minutes. Theo looked at Sejun. He looked back at the tomato. Garbage. Absolute. Unmitigated trash. 0. 1 magic power. In the tower. That wouldn't light a candle. That wouldn't tickle a goblin. It was a rounding error. And the price. Sejun wanted 0. 5 tower coins per piece. It was lunacy. It was robbery. Who would pay good money for a buff that was statistically invisible? Sejun did not explain. He did not justify. He simply loaded the inventory. 1,000 tomatoes were packed into a magical bundle by a high-grade item that reduced weight and preserved freshness. He handed the sack to Theo. Go, Sejun said. Theo took the burden. He took the promise of fish. He turned and walked toward the exit, a merchant walking blind into a market he didn't understand, carrying a sack of garbage for a human farmer who seemed to be hallucinating. The 38th floor. The air here was different. It smelled of ozone, blood, and arrogance. The Phoenix Guild. Led by the formidable Kim Dong-shik, they were the elite. They had just finished dismantling a massive arachnid boss. The ground was littered with chitin and ichor. They stood in the clearing, flush with the adrenaline of victory. Their armor gleamed. Their weapons hummed with residual power. They were the apex predators of this floor. They were the target demographic. Theo emerged from the bushes. He was trembling. He was terrified. These were hunters who killed things for a living. He remembered the contract. He remembered the fish. He swallowed his pride. He wrapped his cloak tighter. He spoke. Would you like to buy some wares? Meow. The sound hung in the air. It was pathetic. It was adorable. The effect was instantaneous. The female healers and mages turned. Their eyes, hardened by the slaughter of the dungeon, softened instantly. The grim reality of the blood-soaked battlefield melted away. A talking cat. In a cloak. Making cute noises. Sejun's marketing strategy had landed its first critical hit. They swarmed him. They cooed. They petted. Theo, drowning in attention, emptied the basket of tomatoes. The charm offensive was working. Until the logic kicked in. The male hunters, the tankers, and the damage dealers stepped forward. They didn't care about the cast. They cared about the stats. They analyzed the fruit. 0. 1 magic power. The scoffing began immediately. Trash. One warrior grunted. Waste of inventory space. Inefficient, another sneered. Why would I chew this for a decimal point? The mood shifted. The novelty wore off. The hunters turned away. They were elite. They didn't buy jump. They didn't carry dead weight. Theo stood there, the basket in his paws, the familiar cold dread of failure washing over him. It was happening again. The rejection. The scam. He was going to have to return to Sejun empty-handed. He was going to lose the fish. Then, a voice. Wait. It was one of the female mages. She was staring at the item description. Her eyes were not looking at the magic power stat. She was reading the line of text that the men, in their obsession with power, had completely ignored. She froze. Her pupils dilated. Her breath hitched. What is it? A healer asked. The mage looked up. Her face was pale. That line, she said quietly. It doesn't grant power. The rune fell silent. It changes what survives. The darkness of the cave does not care about hope. It does not care about effort. It cares only for the cold, binary arithmetic of survival. Sejun stood amidst the gloom, looking down at the rocky, unforgiving soil. He was not merely a farmer here. He was a general conducting a war against a dead world. He reviewed the casualty lists. 1,000 carrot seeds had been committed to the earth. 700 had clawed their way into existence. A 30% mortality rate before the battle had even truly begun. In the soft, forgiving world of the surface, this would be a passing grade. A solid C-. But here, in the belly of the tower, where the sun is a lie and the air tastes of ancient dust, 30% is a screaming warning. It is the margin between eating and fading away. He moved to the cherry tomatoes. 1,200 soldiers deployed. 732 survivors. The corn. The sweet potatoes. The numbers were consistent. A grim algorithm of 60 to 70%. Sejun stared at his hands. They were stained with the gray dirt of the dungeon. He considered the variables. Perhaps his level was too pathetic. Perhaps the cave itself was rejecting the foreign biology, trying to spit out the green invaders. He looked at the fragile shoots. They were weak. They were struggling. But they were there. Sejun's eyes went cold. 70%. It was not victory. But it was a foothold. He would force the other 30% into existence next time. He would drag life out of this stone, even if he had to break his own fingers to do it. While the human waged war on the soil, the beast waged war on the water. The black rabbit stood by the subterranean lake. It was no longer a prey animal. The tower strips away innocence and replaces it with efficiency. In one paw, a torch burning with violent intent. In the other, a wooden hammer. The light danced over the black water. A lure. The Pyron has, driven by a hunger as mindless as the stone walls, leave. They saw the light and imagined flesh. They found only gravity. The hammer fell. It was not a fight. It was industrial processing. The rabbit moved with a terrifying economy of motion. Lure. Strike. Select. A flash of light erupted from the small creature's body. Level up. Sejun watched from the darkness. He did not shear. He merely nodded. The white rabbits were becoming farmers, learning the slow violence of growth. But the black rabbit, it was learning the sharp violence of the kill. It was becoming a monster. Good. This sanctuary needed monsters. To mark the survival of another day, Sejun reached into his inventory. He pulled out a relic of a dead civilization. A packet of instant coffee. There was no kettle. No porcelain cup. No jazz music playing in the background. There was only a plastic bottle and cold, stagnant cave water. He poured the black powder in. He shook it. A sludge of caffeine and chemicals. He called the poison bee. The massive insect descended, its wings humming a low threat. It deposited a stream of thick, golden ani into the bottle. The ani americano. Sejun took a sip. The shock of sugar and bitterness hit his system like a physical blow. It was crude. It was ugly. It was the best thing he had ever tasted. He offered the bottle to his subordinates. The rabbits gathered, their noses twitching at the chemical scent. The black rabbit, fresh from its slaughter, took a confident pull from the straw. It immediately gagged. It spat the black liquid onto the dirt, looking at Sejun with betrayal in its eyes. Sejun lagged. It was a dry, rasping sound. The beasts could not understand. They lived in the purity of nature. They did not understand that for human, poison is sometimes the only comfort that works. The peace was shattered by a vibration in the air. The poison bee returned. It was not alone. A massive yellow structure was being dragged into the cave. The hive. They were moving in. The ecosystem was contracting, centering around the human. He was no longer a castaway. He was the landlord of a dungeon of freaks. Then, the air shifted. The blue window of the tower manifested. It hovered in the darkness, glowing with indifferent authority. Quest received. The tower manager desires the taste of magic cherry tomatoes. Quantity. As. Reward. Failure consequence. Disappointment. Sejun stared at the text. Disappointment. The threat of death was gone. The manager was no longer a god looking to smite him. The manager was a customer. An addict hooked on the product. The dynamic had shifted. The insect was now the supplier. Sejun placed 10 red spheres into the transfer window. He did not hesitate. He gave them away. The tower manager thanks you for your kindness. Sejun smirked in the dark. He had just bought the favor of a deity for the price of a salad. Far away, in a world that still remembered the sun, the Golden Goose Tavern was loud, warm, and reeking of ale and arrogance. Scarum, the goblin merchant, sat with his entourage. They were drinking milk, celebrating a victory that hadn't happened yet. Scarum was a creature of numbers. He had done the math. Theo, the naive cat merchant, had taken trash items to sell. He would fail. He would return with nothing. And when he did, Scarum would be there. With a loan. With high interest. With chains made of gold coins. He would own the cat. Scarum leaned back, opening the system interface. He pulled up the wandering merchant sales ranking. He expected to see his own name climbing the ladder. He looked for himself. Rank 999. He sneered. He was on the board. Barely. But he was there. He looked higher. He wanted to see who he had to crush next. His eyes scanned the list. Rank 980. Rank 985. Rank 982. Name: Theo. Sales volume: 50 tower coins. The glass of milk slipped from the goblin's fingers. It shattered on the floor. White liquid pooled around his boots. Scarum did not move. He could not breathe. 50 coins. That was impossible. The items were garbage. They were frank trash. To sell 50 coins worth of trash, the volume would have to be immense. Where the items were not trash. The goblin's face twisted. The arrogance drained away, replaced by a cold, creeping horror. The cat was not a victim. The cat was a rival. And Scarum had just declared war on something he did not understand. Back in the silence of the cave, the air shimmered. Theo appeared. The cat looked well-fed. His fur was glossy. He carried himself with the unearned confidence of a creature that has never truly suffered. Sejun sat on a rock, watching. He accessed his internal calendar. The journey to the 30th floor was a 10-day round trip. Theo had been gone for 14 days. Sejun did not smile. He did not offer a greeting. He simply asked, "Where have you been?" Theo froze. He tried to meow cutely. He tried to rub against Sejun's leg. Sejun kicked the dirt. "The math," he said, his voice flat. 10 days for travel. You are back in 14. That means you sold the goods instantly. That means you spent 4 days wasting time. The air in the cave grew heady. The predator was looking at the prey. Theo crumbled. The facade of the proud merchant dissolved. He confessed. He shrieked. He had sold everything immediately. The hunters had gone mad for the tomatoes. He had spent the extra days eating expensive fish and sleeping in sunbeams. He held out a heavy bag. 50 tower coins. Sejun took the bag. The weight was significant. He opened it. The gold glinted in the torchlight. He reached in and plucked out 2 coins. He tossed them to the cat. Your commission, Sejun said. And your punishments. Theo looked at the coins. You are demoted, Sejun continued, his voice leaving no room for argument. You are no longer a sales kit. You are an employee. If you want your title back, if you want 5% commission, you will work. Theo nodded frantically. He accepted the terms. He was desperate to please the human. I kept my dialect. Theo blurted out, trying to salvage his dignity. The humans. They think it's cute. It helps sales. Sejun laughed again. He puffed out his chest. Good, Sejun said. Soon, they will all know the name of Sejun. They will see my name on the item descriptions and tremble. Hunts. Absolute, terrified silence. Theo's fur stood on end. The cat stared at the human. Sejun did not know. There is a rule in the tower. A rule for beginner merchants. To protect them from the predatory gaze of the high-ranking guilds, the system censors the supplier's name. The hunters saw the tomatoes. They saw the stats. But where Sejun's name should have been, they saw nothing. Theo looked at the proud human. If Sejun found out, if the apex predator discovered that his fame was being blocked by Theo's incompetence and low rank, the demotion would not stop at employee. He would become a rogue. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced the cat's heart. He snatched the bag of tomatoes for the next shipment. Go now. Theo screamed. What? Sejun blinked. Rest first. No rest. Theo yelled, his eyes wide with the fear of God. I must sell. I must reach 1,000 coins. I must become a mid-level merchant. Only a mid-level merchant could display the supplier's name. Theo turned and sprinted toward the exit. He ran as if the devil himself was snapping at his heels. Sejun watched him go. He scratched his chin, confused. Finally, Sejun muttered. He understands the value of hard work. He did not see the terror. He only saw the results. Sejun sat back in the dirt. The crops were rising from the dead her. The rabbits were slaughtering fish in the dar. The bees were building an empire of sugar. And his merchant was running for his life. The farm was thriving. It was a kingdom built on misunderstandings, violence, and the desperate, crushing need to survive just one more day. The world outside the tower is a construct of steel and gray skies. It is a place where value is usually determined by the sharpness of a blade or the density of a mana stone. But for the insects scurrying beneath the skyscrapers, priorities are fluid. Take team leader Dongshi. A man built of scar tissue and survival instincts. He stands in the center of the concrete jungle. He does not weep for the fallen. He does not weep for the horrors he has witnessed in the dar. He weeps at a scream. A pixelated image of a red sphere. A cherry tomato. His daughter, a creature previously lost to the silent, suffocating war of adolescent beauty standards, has sent a peace offering. A photograph. 2 fingers raised in of shade. The fruit has done what his strength could not. It fixed the cracks in his bloodline. The diet worked. He is undone. But the predators surrounding him do not care for his tears. His team. Hunters. Killers. They do not look at him with sympathy. They look at him with hunger. Not the hunger of starvation. The hunger of vanity. They see the skin of his daughter. They see the results. And the atmosphere shifts. It is no longer a team of comrades. It is a pack of addicts realizing their dealer is holding out. They crowd him. The air grows hot with interrogation. They do not ask about the 38th floor. They do not ask about the monsters waiting to tear their throats out. They demand the source. And when they mobilize, the absurdity of the human condition is laid bare. Usually, a raid requires plate armor, shields, enchantments against death. Not today. The women of the guild arrive dressed for a gala. Light fabrics, bright colors, eyes burning with the terrifying intensity of a consumer who has found the ultimate product. They are not hunting a beast. They are hunting a cat. They are hunting produce. And they are more dangerous now than they have ever been. Deep within the tower's throat, the air is humid and heavy. Theo walks. He is a small orange speck in a green abyss. He is exhausted. The sack on his back drags against the dirt. Inside, the red jewels of the farm. But the physical weight is nothing compared to the burden of his ambition. He has done the math. To restore Sejun's name to the system, he needs 1,000 tower coins. A fortune. He calculates the logistics. The travel time. The cargo capacity. The wear on his paw pads. It is inefficient. He stops. He decides to gamble. He will return to the site of the last transaction. He assumes the humans have moved on. He assumes they are impatient creatures who have left to kill something else. He is wrong. He breaks through the brush. And he stops. They are there. They have been there for 3 days. Statues of longing. When they see him, the air leaves the clearing. They look at him not as an animal, but as a mesha. Theo straightens his back. He remembers he is a merchant. He decides to punish them. He decides to be cruel. He clears his throat. He announces a price hike. From 0.05 coins to 0.07 coins. He trembles as he speaks. Sweat beads on his nose. He thinks he has gone too far. He thinks he has broken the unspoken contract of greed. He waits for the anger. He waits for the negotiation. Silence. The humans stare. To them, this creature does not understand economics. The price is not a hike. It is a rounding error. It is dirt. They do not haggle. They descend. In seconds, 1,500 tomatoes vanish. Inventories are stuck. Gold flows into Theo's purse until the seams groan. They scream for more. They are ravenous. Theo, drunk on the power of capitalism, promises to return in 10 days. The humans nod. 10 days is nothing. They would wait 10 years. Theo turns to leave. He is wealthy. He is a king of trade. And then, he hits a wall. A new group of explorers. A woman named Suva. She tilts her head. She looks at the orange merchant. She speaks the forbidden words. You look like a cat I know. Theo bristles. His pride flares. He denies it. He is unique. He is the only handsome cat in existence. He tries to push past her. He has quotas to meet. He has no time for identity politics. But Suha does not move. She reaches into her pocket. She does not pull a dagger. She pulls a tube. Churu. The sound of the cap unscrewing is louder than a thunderclap in Theo's ears. He freezes. He is a dignified creature. He eats grilled fish caught by the hands of a master. He does not eat processed slime. He tries to walk away. Then the scent hits him. It is a chemical weapon. It smells of fish, but concentrated. It smells of fat, of salt, a forbidden luxury. His resolve crumbles like dry leaves. He takes a lick. His eyes roll back. The flavor is an explosion. It is a revelation. It destroys his willpower instantly. He devours the tube. He begs for another. He has lost. Suha smiles. The smile of a hunter who has trapped the beast without firing a shot. She offers more. But there is a cost. A photograph. The great merchant. The hardball negotiator. He sells his soul for a pest. He poses. He holds up a peace sign with his paw. He allows himself to be held. He walks away with a full belly and a shattered dignity. Suha keeps the photo. It is worth more to her than any artifact in the dungeon. Deeper still, in the veins of the earth, Sejun is busy. He is not concerned with gold or vanity. He is concerned with survival. The underground lake is dark and still. He has blocked the tunnels. The Pyron has, those mindless eating machines, scratch at the barriers, but they cannot enter. This is a sanctuary. He watches the water. The black rabbit is there, clinging to a tube made of green onion. Kicking. Struggling. Sejun watches with the cold, calculating eye of a trainer. He remembers the past. He remembers the rabbit sinking. The panic. The near death. Not today. The rabbit lets go of the tube. It does not sing. It battles. It moves through the water with intent. It is a small victory. But in the tower, small victories are the only thing keeping the dark at bay. The exercise ends. Sejun feels the hollow edge of hunger. He reaches for the oni jar. Empty. He frowns. The poison bee has not visited. The supply chain is broken. He needs sugar. He decides to go to the source. He leaves the safety of the cave. He walks to the hive location. The air changes. It grows thick, vibrating. The sound of thousands of wings beating against the atmosphere. He arrives. The environment has mutated. It is no longer a simple mess. It is a metropolis. Baby bees darken the sky. The population has exploded. Sejun realizes the queen has been busy. He looks down at his hands. He is holding a bucket of yellow tomato flowers. A housewarming gift. It feels inadequate against the sheer scale of the swarm. He steps forward. He calls out. Estate. The hive reacts as one organism. Thousands of eyes glow red. They do not see a farmer. They see an invader. The buzzing rises to a scream. The black rabbit steps forward. It raises its hammer. It is ready to turn the air into a red mist of insect parts. Sejun throws his hands up. He shouts for peace. He tries to stop the slaughter before it begins. And then, silence. Absolute. Terrifying. Silence. The buzzing cuts off, as if a switch was thrown. A golden light spills from the center of the hive. The swarm parts. Something emerges. Sejun blinks. He expects a monster. He expects a bloated insect. He sees a woman. Or something that wears the shape of a woman. The queen poisonous honeybee. She has evolved. She stands on two legs. She is draped in biological armor that mimics a dress of black and gold. She hovers. Her presence is heavy. Regal. She is not a bug. She is a sovereign. Sejun stands there, clutching his pathetic flowers. He looks at the black rabbit. He looks at the queen. The realization settles in his gut like a stone. This is not a farm anymore. The things growing here are leaving the realm of monsters. They are becoming myths. And he is the one feeding them. The view from the top is usually clear. The black dragon sat coiled in the upper reaches of the tower, a place where the air is thin and the silence is absolute. He held a book. The ultimate handbook for tower managers. A tome of laws, precedents, and absolute truths. It was useless. He flipped the page. Nothing. He flipped another. Blank. The creature on the 99th floor did not exist. The system, in all its infinite, bureaucratic wisdom, had categorized the poison bee as a mindless drone. A low-tier pest designed to die on an adventurer's blade. But the data stream coming from the damp cave below was spitting out errors. This was not a drone. This was an anomaly. The dragon closed the book. Dust motes danced in the shockwave. He did not panic. Beings of his stature do not panic. He simply decided that this was someone else's problem. He pushed the responsibility up the chain of command, deferring the headache to his grandfather. He chose to watch. He did not know that the fundamental laws of his domain were being dismantled by a farmer and a jar of ani. The evolution had been quiet, domestic, almost boring. It didn't happen in the fires of war. It happened at dinner. A single worker bee had tasted the nectar of the crops grown by Sejun. This was not normal sugar. It was monodense, soil-enriched fuel. The biology of the insect reacted violently. She grew. Her carapace hardened. Her pheromone shifted, mimicking the chemical signature of a queen. In the hive, this is a death sentence. There can be only one. The old queen would have torn her apart. But this bee possessed a terrifying adaptation. Intelligence. She did not fight. She fled. She bypassed the brutal politics of the swarm, and sought asylum in the only neutral territory she knew. The human's cave. There, in the dark, surrounded by the smell of dirt and tomatoes. She gorged herself. She ate until her exoskeleton cracked. She ate until the beast fell away. The metamorphosis was total. She stripped away the monster and built something new. Something that looked less like an insect, and more like the species that fed her. We returned to the cave. The air was thick with the hum of wings. Sejun stood his ground. He held a bucket of yellow tomato flowers. A ridiculous weapon against a swarm capable of stripping flesh from bone. He looked at the entity hovering before him. He asked a simple question. He asked if she was the bee he knew. Silence stretched. The swarm waited for the command to kill. The command never came. The entity chirped. It was a bright, happy sound that had no place in a dungeon. The hostility in the room evaporated. It didn't fade. It simply ceased to exist. The new queen accepted the flowers. Her face was human. Her smile was genuine. She did not strike him. She hugged him. The hierarchy of the tower collapsed in that embrace. The terrifying swarm, taking cues from their leader, descended. They did not attack. They rubbed against Sejun's legs. They purred. They acted like oversized, venomous kittens. The rabbits, sensing the shift, joined the pile. The lethal tension of the 99th floor was replaced by the chaotic warmth of a dysfunctional family reunion. But peace is just a pause between shifts. Time moved. The blue moon rose. The tower flooded with heavy, saturated magic. It was a narcotic atmosphere. Most creatures fell into a deep, comatose slumber, their bodies processing the excess energy. Sejun's eyelids grew heavy. He wanted to sleep. He wanted to drift. The rabbits did not care about his fatigue. They dragged him out of bed. They pulled him to the fields. Their urgency was frantic. They were not afraid of monsters. They were afraid of waste. In the center of the patch, the soil seemed to bleed violet-like. A single carrot had mutated. It had drunk deep from the blue moon's power. It was no longer orange. It was a deep, bruising purple. The system tagged it. Agility carrot. Blue moon variant. Sejun stared at it. The rabbits stared at it. This was not food. This was power. He pulled it from the earth. The roots snapped. The system chimed in his ear. 70 experience points. A massive jump from the usual 50. He didn't celebrate. He calculated. Quality over quantity. Mastery over volume. This was the new rule. He handed the root to the sickle rabbit. The creature held its blade with the reverence of a surgeon. 1 slice. 2 slices. Perfect, equal portions. They ate in silence. The crunch of the carrot echoed off the stone walls. The nutrients hit their bloodstreams instantly. Agility increased by 0.5. A microscopic gain. To an outsider, it was nothing. To a prisoner in a tower of death, it was everything. Survival is a game of inches. They had just gained an inch. Sejun moved to the tomatoes. 5 purple variants. He harvested them with mechanical efficiency. Quest complete. The tower manager, watching from his high perch, acknowledged the whir. A reward materialized in the inventory. Sejun tried to speak, to bargain, to ask for a skill. The administrator ignored him. The system is cold. It gives what is owed, and nothing more. Then, the silence broke. A shriek echoed from the tunnel entrance. Theo the cat had returned. The merchant walked out of the brush, expecting a welcome. Instead, he walked into a wall of buzzing noise. The new generation of bees did not know him. They did not see a partner. They saw a thief. The swarm descended. Theo screamed, diving for cover, his dignity shattering instantly. Sejun shouted. He barked a command. He declared the cat to be family. The bees stopped. They hovered, confused. The kill order rescinded halfway through execution. They retreated, leaving the merchant shaking, covered in pollen, sneezing violently. Theo clung to Sejun's leg. He called him brother. Sejun peeled the cat off. He corrected him. They were not brothers. They were business partners. He demanded the sales report. Theo wiped his nose. The fear vanished. The merchant returned. He produced a heavy bag of coins. He began to speak of the lower floors. The humans there were desperate. They craved fresh food. They craved the cherry tomatoes. Theo grinned. He had seen their desperation. So, he had raised the price. 0.02 coins per piece. A tax on hunger. Sejun looked at the cat. He had expected incompetence. He had expected failure. Instead, he found ruthless capitalism. He nodded. He patted the cat's head. He gave him a bonus. High above, the dragon nodded as well. The economy was flowing. This was acceptable. They sat down to rest. The work was done. Theo reached into his bag. He pulled out a small, red tube. He tore the top off with his teeth and began to lick the past inside. Sejun froze. He knew that packaging. He knew that brand. It was churro. A processed cat treat from Earth. The atmosphere in the cave shifted. The temperature didn't drop, but Sejun's focus sharpened to a razor point. He asked the source. Theo answered between licks. A hunter. A human from the outside. The hunter had given him the treat. For a photo. The cat preferred salmon flavor. This was chicken. He complained about the taste. Sejun stopped listening to the complaints. His mind was racing, tearing through the logic of the tower. Inventory space is life. When a hunter enters the tower, they are limited by weight. Every gram is calculated. You bring potions. You bring ammunition. You bring food rations. You do not bring dead weight. And yet, a hunter had used their precious, limited allowance to bring cat treats. Sejun looked at Theo. He didn't see a cat anymore. He didn't see a partner. He saw a gold mine. The logic was absolute. Hunters were starving, terrified, and exhausted. They were willing to trade resources for a moment of softness. They were willing to pay for a picture of a cute animal. The farm produced tomatoes. That was survival. But Theo produced cute. And cute had zero supply, and infinite demand. A dark grin spread across Sejun's face. It was not the smile of a farmer. It was the smile of a predator who had just discovered a new species of prey. Theo licked the treat, innocent and stupid. He did not realize his status had just changed. He was no longer a merchant. He was the product. Sejun watched him. The tower was cruel, yes. But the market was about to be cornered. The darkness of the cave does not care about human ambition. It swallows light. It swallows hope. It waits. In this suffocating gloom, survival is not a battle of swords. It is a battle of leverage. Sejun sits in the shadows. His hand clutches a small, red plastic tube. To the uninitiated, it is a processed cat treat. A blend of chicken byproducts and thickeners. Trash from the old world. But here, in the belly of the tower, it is more valuable than gold. It is leverage. He looks at the creature before him. Theo. The wandering merchant. A being of magic and fur. A creature that could shred a human throat with a casual swipe. But right now, Theo is not a predator. He is in a deck. His eyes are locked on the red tube. His pupils are white, swallowing the dim light. He is vibrating. Sejun does not smile. Smiling is a waste of energy. He simply makes the offer. The position of sales gat is open. It is a corporate negotiation stripped of the boardroom table. There are no lawyers. There are no contracts signed in ink. There is only the primal exchange of desire. For the price of one chicken-flavored past, the cat agrees to lease his dignity. 1 hour. That is the price of a soul in this dungeon. The transaction concludes. The past is consumed. The dignity is sold. Theo lies back against the cold stone. His belly full, his eyes glazed with chemical bliss. The rabbits, the silent laborers of this ecosystem, tend to the fire. The smell of grilling fish begins to permeate the stagnant air. It is the smell of life in a place designed for death. Sejun does not rest. He cannot afford the luxury of contentment. He needs information. He needs to understand the mechanics of the cage he is trapped in. He asks about the trade routes. Theo speaks. He explains the hierarchy of the wandering merchants. It is a bureaucracy of survival. Licenses. Levels. Rank. A beginner is nothing. But an intermediate merchant. A high-level merchant. They carry the protection of the system. The tower has laws. Violent, bloody laws. But even the monsters obey the code. A licensed merchant is untouchable. To attack a trader is to attack the tower itself. Sejun listens. His mind, sharpened by desperation, begins to construct a path. If the merchants are safe, then the merchants are shields. He looks at the cat. He sees a ticket out. He asks the question. Can Theo guide a hunter? And he escort a human down to the lower floors? The answer is immediate. It is dismissive. The monsters will ignore the cat. They will look past the merchant. But they will see the meat walking behind him. They will devour the human and leave the cat to walk alone. Furthermore, the shortcuts are restricted. The hidden veins of the tower, the spatial tiers that connect the floors, are not for tourists. Theodon's. He adds a detail. A casual, throwaway fact. He mentions that he traveled here from the 38th floor. It took him 5 days. Sejun freezes. The air in the cave seems to drop 10 degrees. 5 days. From the 38th floor. Sejun's heart hammers against his ribs. He does the math. In his mind, he's close. He must be close. If the travel time was so short, he must be just a few floors above the front line. He speaks. His voice is a dry raspy. He asks for their current location. He asks for the number. Theo smiles. It is a bright, innocent, devastating smile. We are on the 99th floor. Suds. Absolute, crushing silence. The number hangs in the air like a guillotine blade. Sejun does not scream. Not yet. His brain simply refuses to process the integer. The human hunters, the apex warriors of Earth, the raiding parties equipped with modern weaponry and magic. They are struggling to breach the 40th floor. They are fighting and dying in the mud of the 40th floor. Sejun is not above them. He is not close to them. He is nearly 60 floors above the known world. Between him and the nearest human face lies a vertical continent of hell. Unmapped. Lethal. Impossible. He is not stranded on an island. He is stranded on the moon. Sejun's legs give out. He collapses. The stone floor meets him with zero sympathy. His vision blurs. The hope he had constructed, the fragile, pathetic idea that rescue was days away, evaporates. Rescue is not days away. Rescue is decades away. Maybe centuries. He feels the weight of the ceiling. Thousands of tons of rock. He realizes how far away the sky is. He realizes he may never see the sun again. Theo taps his face. The cat is annoyed. The silence is boring. Sejun stares at nothing. Despair is a heavy blanket. It is warm. It invites you to sleep. It invites you to die. But the stomach is a cruel master. It demands tribute. The smell of burning fish snaps the teether of depression. Sejun sits up. He is not dead yet. He corrects the rabbits on their cooking. He tells the cat that the paid hour is over. He pushes the horror into a dark, locked room in the back of his skull. Panic will not lower the floor number. Prying will not bridge the abyss. He eats. And as he eats, the human mind, that stubborn, cockroach-like engine of survival, begins to churn again. He concocts a new fantasy. If he cannot hire a merchant, he will be a merchant. He pictures it. He sees himself clad in mysterious robes, walking the lower dungeons. He appears from the shadows, a legendary figure, selling cherry tomatoes to wounded hunters for the price of diamonds. He sees himself as the savior of the abyss. He asks Theo, "Can a human get a license?" Theo looks at him. The cat does not hesitate. The dream dies before it takes its first breath. Only creatures born in the tower can be merchants. It is a fundamental law. The economy is a closed loop. Outsiders are prey, not participants. Sejun screams. He tears at his hair. He curses the stone walls. He curses the gods. He curses the architecture. The tower dangles hope like a toy, only to snatch it away. It is mocking him. The scream echoes. It bounces off the cold walls. And then it fades. The silence returns. The cave absorbs the noise and offers nothing back. Time moves on. It does not care about his frustration. The rabbits water the crops. The bees, new additions to this pathetic kingdom, buzz among the flowers. Sejun stands up. He wipes his face. If he cannot leave, and if he cannot cheat, then he will dominate. He looks at his field. He looks at the tomatoes. He decides to live. He decides to farm them until the tower itself is forced to acknowledge him. He will choke this dungeon with life until it yields. Far below, miles and miles below the stone floor, on the surface of the earth, the ripples of a single farmer's labor are crashing against the shores of power. A high-rise office. The air is filtered, cold, and smells of money. Michael and Claren, vice president of Gagel Food Company, sits at a table. Opposite him is Ginny, the CEO of Easter Pharmaceutical. They are predators. They do not hunt with claws. They hunt with capital. They devour markets. Between them, resting on the polished surface of the table, is a single cherry tomato. It is small. It is red. It looks innocuous. It is the item Sejun sold. It has climbed the supply chain. It has passed from hand to hand until it reached the apex. Jenny activates a hologram. Data streams into the air. Her scientists have dissected the fruit. They have peered into its molecular soul. The results defy biology. They defy logic. This is not a vegetable. It is a biological weapon. It contains compounds that incinerate body fat. It overclocks the human metabolism. It is a miracle cure wrapped in a red skin. Jenny speaks. Her voice is sharp. She knows Michael's company failed to farm in the tower. She knows his weakness. She proposes an alliance. She wants his failed infrastructure. In exchange, she offers a seat at the table. A share of the monopoly. Michael picks up the tomato. He controls 40% of the global food market. He knows the weight of power. He bites into the fruit. Flavor explodes. It is sweet. It is rich. But he does not just taste sugar. He tastes dominance. He smiles. It is the same greedy, desperate smile Sejun wore in the darkness of the cave. The connection is made. On the 99th floor, a man fights to survive the day. On the surface, titans prepare to fight for the harvest. The tower connects them all. The predator, the prey, and the produce. And the silence of the 99th floor waits for no one. The dark is not empty. It waits. Sejun sat in the dust. The silence of the cave was a lie. It felt like a sanctuary. It was actually a throat, waiting to swallow. He held a stick. He dragged it through the dirt, drawing circles. Not art. Geometry. Calculations of survival. He was dividing his reality into two distinct spheres. The immediate cage. And the darkness beyond. To exist here was to suffer 1,000 tiny inconveniences. To thrive meant bending the environment to his will. But first, he had to know what was breathing in the dark with him. He looked at the cat. Theo, the wandering merchant, grooming his fur, indifferent to the crushing weight of the stone ceiling. Sejun asked the question. The one that rots the stomach. What else is down here? Theo stopped grooming. His answer was casual. Boar heathen. Just a neighbor. A crimson giant bear. A little further down the tunnel. The air in the cave dropped 10 degrees. Sejun stopped breathing. Memory is a parasite. It eats the present. In a fraction of a second, Sejun was no longer in the safety of his camp. He was back there. The phantom pain of a past encounter shredded his nerves. He saw the mass, a mountain of muscle and fur, eyes burning with red, predatory light. The absolute, crushing helplessness of being meat. The trauma was not a thought. It was a physical blow. He realized the truth. Leaving this cave was not exploration. It was suicide. The entrance was not a door. It was the lip of a grave. Safety was a fragile delusion. But panic is for the prey. Sejun is a farmer. And a farmer understands cycles. He looked at his crops. The cherry tomatoes. Thousands of flowers. White stars in the gloom. Ready to bloom. In the closed, stagnant air of the tower, blooming flowers are a signal. A dinner bell. For the poison honeybees. The swarm was coming. Most men would tremble. Most men would hide. Sejun stared at the flowers. And his fear curdled into something cold. Something useful. A plan. If the bees want nectar, they must pay a tax. He would not fight them. He would employ them. He would turn the swarm into a perimeter guard. A living, buzzing biological barrier. No monster approaches the hum of 1,000 poison stingers. And more. He looked at the rope. Woven from onion leaves. Sturdy. Green. He would make the bees carry it. Tie it to the trees above the opening. An elevator. Powered by insects. A smile cut across his face. It was not a happy smile. It was the sharp expression of a man who had just solved a puzzle that was trying to kill him. He could ascend. But first, capital. He turned to the animals. The cat. The rabbit. The economy of the tower was waiting to be broken. It was time for Theo to return to the surface. Not as a scavenger, but as a kingpin. 38th floor. The sun was blinding. A camp of hunters. Waiting. Sweating. Desperate. They were not organized. They were a mob. Addicts waiting for a fix. When Theo emerged from the brush, the crowd surged. A wave of greed and entitlement. They shouted. They demanded. They claimed territories and prearranged deals. They tried to intimidate the merchant. They forgot who held the leash. Theo did not flinch. He possessed the arrogance of a creature that knows its value. He raised a paw. Silence fell. He looked at the sweaty, shouting humans with absolute disdain. The rules had changed. First come, first serve. That is for peasants. Theo announced the new world order. 500 cherry tomatoes. But not sold individually. Sold as a lot. To one person. To the highest bidder. If you are poor, leave. The starting bid is 35 tower coins. Deep below the ground. Sejun sipped his water. He explained the cruelty of economics to the rabbits. Supply is finite. Demand is infinite. You do not feed the market. You starve it. You force the buyers into psychological warfare. You make them bleed money to prove their worth. An auction is not a sale. It is a weapon. He was calm. He was testing the cat's ability to extort the human race. But the tower watches. And the tower gets hungry. A blue window shattered his focus. Ding. Request. From the tower manager. The administrator was thirsty. He demanded juice. Cherry tomato juice. Mixed with the magical ani. Sejun hesitated. He had farming to do. Manual labor is precious. He tried to differ. He tried to say later. The tower manager does not understand the word later. The windows multiplied. Aggressive chimes filled the air. Ding. 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 Do it now. The reward will be legendary. Trust the system. Sejun sighed. The sigh of a man managed by idiots. He grabbed a handful of ripe tomatoes. His grip strained. Owned by months of digging in hard earth. Owned by climbing. He squeezed. It was not culinary. It was violent. Fruit crushed to pulp in a closed fist. Red juice sprayed into a cup. Deadly juicing. He called the queen ani bee. She obeyed. A drop of golden, glowing honey. He mixed it. Chunks of tomato swirling in the red liquid. Rich. Sweet. He held the cup out to the empty air. An offering to the void. The cup vanished. Somewhere else. In a dimension stitched between realities. A small black dragon held the cup. Claws trembling. This was the administrator. The god of the tower. It took a sip. Explosion. Flavor detonated on the tongue. Sweet. Tangy. Fresh. The dragon squealed. Kicking its legs in the air. Lost in the ecstasy of sugar. Back in the cave. The reward arrived. Skill acquired. Beekeeping level 1. Sejun read the text. His eyes widened. It was not a minor buff. It was dominion. Bees would show no hostility. He could issue commands. Increase range. Boost egg production. Accelerate pollination. It was exactly what he needed to enslave the swarm. The manager had been listening. The system was not random. It was reacting to his anxiety. Sejun looked up. Thank you. In the void. The black dragon blushed. A god touched by gratitude. But greed is universal. A message appeared. One more glass. Sejun felt confident. He felt the arrogance of the rewardant. He made a joke. A dangerous joke. Are you a winged pig? Silence. The air in the cave became heavy. Like lead. A massive, dark pressure descended. Crushing the lungs. The dragon was offended. The system window turned red. Hostile. Go to hell, fool. Sejun panicked. He did not know he was mocking a dragon. He only knew the air suddenly tasted like death. While Sejun navigated the temper of a petty god. The 38th floor was burning. The auction had reached a fever pitch. Team leader Donchik stood in the crowd. Sweat dripping into his eyes. The price was 41 coins. He looked around. The faces had changed. The rabble was gone. Replaced by sharks. Corporate agents. The sister of a pharmaceutical CEO. Big Pharma was here. They smelled the magic in the tomatoes. Donchik was drowning. He shouted a bid. 45.5. Pathetic. The numbers climbed. 50. 51. 52. He turned to his subordinate. Begging for loose change. Scraping the bottom of the barrel. 54. Someone shouted 60. It was over. The despair was thick enough to choke on. The ordinary hunters were being erased. Priced out of their own survival. Witnessing the moment raw capital devoured the tower. And then. A voice. Bored. Sharp as a guillotine blade. 100 tower coins. The sound died. The crowd parted like the sea before a storm. A man stood there. Braceau. Immaculate. Amidst the filth and armor of the hunters. Michael and Claren. Vice President of Gijal Food. The young master. He did not look like he was gambling. He looked like he was buying a pack of gum. He dropped 100 coins. Not to compete. But to end the conversation. Theo Bean. The gavel fell. The humble cherry tomato was no longer food. It was the most valuable artifact on the floor. Sejun sat in his hole. Unaware. That he had just caught the attention of the titans. The prey was becoming the power. And the silence of the cave was about to get very loud. The air in the auction house was not stale, because of poor ventilation. It was stale because hope had died there hours ago. The gathered hunters stood in clumps, radiating the sour scent of desperation. These were men and women who bled in the darkness of the lower floors. They traded scars for coins. They traded their sanity for a chance to eat. And now they watch. They watch the economy of the tower shift like a tectonic plate, crushing them into the dust. The bidding restarted. The remaining stock was on the block. 1,500 cherry tomatoes. To the outside world, this is a salad ingredient. To the people in this room, it was life. It was manna. It was the only thing standing between them and the slow rot of malnutrition. Panic set in. It wasn't a wave. It was a contagion. It clawed at their throats. Dongshik stood at the front. He was a man composed entirely of stress fractures. His team depended on him. His family, waiting in the safety of a world that felt a million miles away, depended on him. He opened his mouth. He didn't speak. He screamed. 60 coins. The number hung in the air. It was a jagged, ugly sound. It wasn't a calculation of value. It was a plea. It was a man begging the universe to let him survive for one more week. Silence followed. The kind of silence that precedes a guillotine drop. The tower does not care about your desperation. The tower does not care about your family. The tower recognizes only one language. Power. And in this room, power wore a gray suit. Michael and Claren did not scream. He did not sweat. He sat with the relaxed posture of a man watching insects fight over a crumb. He didn't raise his voice. He simply raised the floor. 100 coins. The air left the room. Dongshik froze. His heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. 100 was impossible. 100 was ruin. But the predator in the gray suit was not finished. He wasn't interested in a bidding war. He was interested in extermination. With the casual dismissal of a human buying a pack of gum, when Clarence signaled again, he purchased the entire stock. All 1,500 tomatoes. 300 coins. Dawn. The gavel didn't bang. It sounded like a gunshot. Dongshik collapsed. His legs simply ceased to function. The disparity was absolute. The humble fruit, grown in the dark by a man they would never meet, had become a diamond. And Clarence stood. He picked up a single tomato. He bit into it. Juice ran down his chin. He whispered a word of approval. He didn't look at the devastation around him. He didn't look at the weeping hunters. He turned his back. He had what he came for. The rest of them could starve. While the humans wallowed in the mud of their defeat, the true apex merchant went to work. Theo, the wandering cat. He sat on his velvet cushion, observing the chaos with bored, reptilian eyes. 2 women approached. One of them smelled familiar. Sueth. Theo remembered her. Not her face. Not her personality. He remembered her utility. She was the dispenser of churu. She asked for a photograph. Typical. Humans are obsessed with documentation. They want to capture the image of the predator, perhaps to convince themselves they were close to greatness. In the past, Theo would have settled for a treat, a simple tube of meat paste. But the hierarchy had changed. His partner, Sejun, trapped in the void below, had given new orders. Sejun did not want cat treats. Sejun wanted the bitterness of civilization. Theo narrowed his eyes. He extended a paw. He demanded coffee. Not beans. Not a fresh brew. He demanded the yellow, chemical-filled sticks of instant coffee mix. The fuel of the corporate slave. So was surprise. But she was trained well. She handed over the box. Theo checked the list. He was done. Salt. Pepper. The transaction was cold. Efficient. The spices of the surface world were now in the custody of the void. The humans, in their infinite stupidity, worked sharp. They looked at Theo's paws. They asked to touch the soft pads, as if they were religious artifacts. Theo found it baffling. These were apex predators. They carried weapons. They killed monsters. And yet, they would pay good money to touch his feet. He allowed it. Not out of kindness, but because he was a businessman. If the prey wants to pay to be humiliated, you take their money. He was becoming a tycoon. A mogul of sacks and spices. But then, his nose twitched. Beneath the smell of unwashed bodies and fear, there was something else. A specific scent profile. Barley. Fermented cabbage. The distinct chemical aftershave of the Republic of South Korea. It was on Sua. It was the same scent that clung to Sejun in the cave. The connection snapped into place. Theo's eyes dilated. These were not just random customers. These were Sejun's countrymen. A new market had just opened. Deep below the earth. There is no sunlight here. There is no wind. There is only the rhythm of the shovel. Sejun worked. The surface world was screaming over prices. Sejun was creating value from nothing. The bees buzzed around him. They were no longer wild insects. They were employees. Under his guidance, they had begun to produce cherry tomato oni juice. A liquid stat booster. Sejun didn't have bottles. He didn't have a label. He just had the raw production power of nature bending to his will. He turned to the field. The harvest was ready. He reached down. He gripped the green stalk. He pulled. The earth gave way. A carrot emerged. This was not a vegetable. The system scanned it. Agility carrot. It pulsated with energy. It had the ability to break down body fat and enhance speed. It was a pharmaceutical-grade stimulant disguised as a root. Sejun wiped the dirt off on his pants. He took a bite. Crunch. Sweetness. Power. He chewed slowly. He realized the truth. Once he scaled this operation, he wouldn't just be a farmer. He would be a kingmaker. The hunters above would kill for this. But for now, it was just dinner. He kept working. The rabbits swarmed him, harvesting alongside him. Hours passed. Muscles burned. Then, the chime. The sound that every hunter dreams of. Level up. Level 10. For a combat class, level 10 is a milestone written in blood. It usually requires a massacre. It requires a pile of corpses high enough to touch the ceiling. Sejun braced himself. He expected a boss fight. He expected a trial of survival. The system flickered. Job quest. Expand the farm by 50 square meters. Sejun stared at the text. He blinked. For anyone else, this was manual labor. For Sejun, this was Tuesday. He picked up his hoe. He didn't complain. He didn't hesitate. He simply executed. The earth moved. The farm grew. The system chimed again. Level 11. No blood. Screams. Just the quiet accumulation of power. He received a new trait. Experience points for creating rice paddies. The tower was guiding him. It was steering him toward the staple crop of his homeland. It wanted him to build a civilization in the dark. Exhaustion finally hit him like a hammer. He didn't make it to his bed. He collapsed in the dirt. The rabbits curled around him. A pile of fur and fatigue. They slept under the artificial sun. A strange family bound by the struggle to eat. Morning came. But time in the tower is elastic. It stretches. It warps. Sejun opened his eyes. The rabbits were gone. In their place lay monsters. Overnight, the cute bunnies had evolved. They were large. Muscular. Their teeth looked sharper. Sejun joked about kicking them out. He threatened them with eviction. But he didn't move. They lay together on the grass, soaking in the light. The predator, and his back. Back on the surface. The despair had settled into a heavy, wet blanket. Dongshik sat alone. He was finished. He had failed the auction. He had failed his daughter. He was doing the math in his head, calculating how long they could survive on nothing. He stared at the floor. Shadows fell over him. He looked up. Sura stood there. And at her heels, the orange merchant. Dongshik was confused. Why was the cat here? He had no money. He had no treats. He was a man with empty pockets and a hollow soul. Theo did not mince words. He didn't purr. He looked at the defeated hunter with eyes that had seen the void. He asked a single question. Are you the leader of the Koreans? Dongshik nodded, dumbfounded. Theo sat. He extended a paw. It wasn't a request for a pet. It wasn't a beg for food. It was an offer. Do you want to make a contract? The air shifted. Dongshik didn't know it yet, but the world had just turned upside down. The lines of trade were opening. The isolation of the farmer was ending. Sejun had the goods. He had the food. And now, he had a distribution channel. The world above had money. But the man in the cave had the calories. And in a survival game, money is a fiction. Food is the only absolute power. The orange tabby did not offer a paw. It offered a verdict. To the human eye, it was a gesture of cuteness. A soft, fur-covered limb extending into the stale air of the dungeon. But Kim Dongshik knew better. He was not looking at a pet. He was looking at a broker of fate. The document sliding across the roof stone was not paper. It was a lifeline woven from the desperate prayers of a drowning man. Theo the cat spoke. He asked if the human wished to sign. A rhetorical question. Dongshik was a man hollowed out by failure. The expedition had been a disaster. The debt was a mountain pressing against his spine. And somewhere, far away in the real world, a daughter waited for a father who was rapidly becoming a ghost. There was no choice. There was only the illusion of choice. He accepted. The terms were absolute. They bridged the impossible void between the tower and the mundane earth. 50 million won. That was the price. The cat demanded the currency be delivered to a specific set of coordinates in the Sosa district of Bucheon. A residential address. The home of a family named Park. In exchange, the hunter would receive 50 tower coins. And 200 magical cherry tomatoes. The transaction was physical. The goods materialized. When the tomatoes spilled into the basket, the color was violent. Really. vibrant, screaming red against the gray, rotting backdrop of the dungeon. Dongshik trembled. His hand shook as he touched the skin of the fruit. In a world starving for mana, in a world where sustenance was gray tasteless mush, this basket was not food. It was a kingdom. It was redemption. It was the tuition fees for his daughter. It was the mortgage. It was the silence of his creditors. Tears cut tracks through the grime on his face. He was weeping over vegetables. That is what the tower does to a man. It strips him of dignity until a tomato becomes a god. But the human mind is a broken machine. Even in salvation, it seeks to complicate things. Curiosity. The fatal flaw of the prey species. Dongshik wiped his eyes. He looked at the cat. And he asked the question that would seal his fate. He asked about Mr. Park Sejun. The logic in Dongshik's mind was simple. Pestrian. He assumed this Sejun was a trapped novice. A low-level struggler sending money home to Mummy and Daddy because he couldn't find the exit. A pitiful creature, just like himself. Theo paused. The cat remembered the instructions of his master. Please. Make them fear me. Theo spun a fabrication that would ripple through the political structure of the tower like a shockwave. He looked the hunter in the eye. Sejun Nim, the cat said, his voice dripping with bored reverence, saved my life on the 40th floor. Silence. Absolute. Vacuum-sealed silence. The number hit Dongshik like a sledgehammer to the temple. 40. The 40th floor. It was not a location. It was a myth. It was the abyss where legends went to die. No recorded hunter had ever stepped foot there and returned to speak of it. It was the domain of monsters that could swallow guilds whole. The misunderstanding took root instantly. It calcified into truth. In Dongshik's mind, the image of Park Sejun shifted. The trapped novice evaporated. In his place stood a titan. A hidden master. A monster of unparalleled power, living in seclusion on the 40th floor, farming magical crops because the rest of the world was too boring to engage with. A solo hunter who looked down on the great guilds as if they were ants. Dongshik's blood ran cold. He was not doing a favor for a trapped kid. He was serving a god. He realized, with terrifying clarity, that this connection was the single most important asset of his life. If he mishandled this, he wouldn't just lose money. He would offend a being capable of surviving the 40th floor. He vowed, right then and there, to monopolize the distribution. He would be the exclusive hound for this hidden monster. He would personally ensure the money reached Sejun's parents. He would guard that house in Butchon like a fortress. The contract was signed. The ink dried. A misunderstanding sealed in fear, stronger than any shield Sejun could have ever purchased. Far below, deep in the earth, unaware that his reputation was currently being inflated to that of a mythological deity, Park Sejun was observing a much smaller, quieter triumph. But laborer. The rabbits had been busy. In the dim, bioluminescent light of the cave, a structure had risen. It was crude, yes, but it was architecture. Sturdy earthen walls packed tight by small, desperate paws. A roof thatched with the dried stalks of green onions they had harvested days ago. They had even understood the concept of privacy. There was a separate room for resting. Sejun ran his hand over the wall. He felt the texture of their effort. Survival in the tower is usually a chaotic scramble. A panic. A breathless run from one crisis to the next. But here, they were building a civilization of inches. He looked at the rabbits. They looked back, their chests heaving, their eyes wide with the need for approval. Sejun smiled. Good work, he said. The tension in the rabbits' shoulders collapsed. They basked in the praise. It was time for a celebration. A housewarming party commenced in the silence of the cave. It was a pathetic affair by human standards, mud floors and darkness, but to them, it was a royal banquet. The younger rabbits, emboldened by their growth, had begun building their own shelters. They were asserting independence. The parent couple, however, remained inseparable. Sejun poured carrot juice into cups hollowed out of raw carrots. A meta-consumption. He raised a toast to their labor. He watched the mother and father rabbit. They clung to each other with a frantic intimacy. In the dark, in the cold, body heat is the only currency that matters. Sejun narrowed his eyes. He suspected the population of his farm was about to increase again. Labor was good. Mouths to feed were bad. It was the eternal balance of the farmer. Then, a chime. It cut through the domestic peace like a knife. The blue tower interface flickered into existence. The seed store is now open. Sejun's posture shifted. The benevolent landlord vanished. The consumer emerged. This was the moment he had been hoarding for. He accessed the inventory. His eyes scanned the lists, hungry and calculating. 100 potato seeds. 5 tower coins. 100 strawberry seeds. zero point 0.5 coins. 1,000 lettuce seeds. 0.1 coins. He paused. His finger hovered over the lettuce. His mind betrayed him. He hallucinated the crunch. The crisp, watery snap of a fresh lettuce leaf. He imagined it wrapped around a piece of grilled pork belly. The grease mixing with the vegetable. He swallowed dry spit. Reality crashed back in. He had no pork belly. He had no meat. Lettuce without meat is a tragedy. It is a hollow luxury. It is water in leaf form. It provides no fuel. He needed energy. He needed mass. He needed the heavy, leaden weight of carbohydrates sitting in his stomach. He needed to survive. He chose the potatoes. The transaction was instant. Violence in digital form. 5 tower coins vanished from his account. 50 loyalty points were added. And then, physics asserted itself. A heavy sack materialized in the air above him. Gravity, the only constant in the universe, took over. Thud. The sack slammed into the ground with a vibration that traveled up Sejun's legs. It nearly crushed him. The tower does not do customer service. It delivers goods with the subtlety of a rock slide. Sejun coughed, waving away the dust. He reached into the sack. He pulled out a seed potato. It was ugly. It was covered in dirt. It was beautiful. It was substantial. It held the promise of starch. His mind immediately began to cook. Steamed potatoes. Boiled potatoes. Potato pancakes searing on a hot rock. He looked at the rabbits. Tomorrow, he said. The rabbits twitched. Tomorrow, we turn the soil. The rest was over. The era of the onion was ending. The age of the potato had begun. While Sejun dreamed of starch and stability, Theo was navigating a different kind of jungle. The Central Merchants District. A chaotic ecosystem of greed, noise, and desperation. The cat walked with purpose. A bag of coins jingled at his side, the sound of power. He was shopping. Blankets. Pillows. A ladle. A frying pan. He was not equipping a campsite. He was equipping a home. He was civilizing the cave. But Theo was not just a buyer. He was a student. He found a wolf merchant. A towering beast with fur matted by the grime of the market, selling kitchenware spread out on a dirty cloth. The price tag for the set was 1.6 tower coins. Theo paused. He remembered the lecture. Sejun had drilled it into him. The 3 commandments of the deal. First, ask for a discount. No matter what. Second, if they refuse, turn and leave. Third, if they stop you, you own them. Theo looked up at the wolf. Lower the price, the cat demanded. The wolf sneered. 1.5. That's it. Theo didn't blink. Lower. The wolf bared its teeth. I have to eat too, cat. You'll profit at that price. Refusal. Theo executed step 2. He turned his back. He did not hesitate. He began to walk away, his tail swishing with arrogant finality. 1 step. 2 steps. Panic flashed across the wolf's face. In this market, a buyer walking away is death. Wait. The wolf called out. The desperation leaked into his voice. 1.2. Take it for 1.2. Theo stopped. He turned slowly. Victory tasted sweeter than tuna. He accepted the deal. His chest swelled with pride. He had bought the goods, and he had not been a fool. He had applied the wisdom of the human, and he had conquered the predator. He felt invincible. A wandering merchant who knew the art of the deal. The market was his playground. But the marketplace is a treacherous ocean. As Theo celebrated his tactical brilliance, scanning the crowd for his next conquest, his eyes snagged on a figure. The noise of the market seemed to drop away. It was a goblin, but not a scavenging wretch. This one wore a trench coat. It moved with a slippery, dangerous confidence, whispering to customers about items forbidden, items from outside. Theo froze. His fur stood on end. He recognized that face. Serum. The marketplace breeds. It is a lung filled with greed, dust, and the still sweat of desperate commerce. In this pit of vipers, confidence is the only currency that matters. And Theo, the wandering cat merchant, is currently overdrawn. He struts. He preens. He mistakes the adrenaline of a recent sale for invincibility. It is a common error among prey animals who briefly taste power. He walks with the unearned swagger of a king, his tail twitching with arrogance, blind to the predators watching from the shadows. Then, he sees it. A face in the crowd. Terim. The goblin. The bottom feeder. A creature that built a livelihood on selling glass and calling it diamond. Old rage ignites in Theo's chest. It is not the clean anger of justice. It is the petty, burning resentment of a victim who remembers being small. He remembers the lies. He remembers the humiliation of buying hope and receiving trash. Theo does not strategize. He does not plan. He simply erupts. He screams the goblin's name. The sound cuts through the ambient noise of the market like a blade. Heads turn. The flow of commerce stutters and halts. Scarum turns. He is a wretched thing, wrapped in a trench coat that smells of old oil and bad decisions. He sees Theo, and for a heartbeat, he calculates. Can he talk his way out? Can he weave a web? He tries. The goblin smiles a greased, sickly expression. He speaks of friendship. He speaks of patience. He attempts to rewrite history, painting their past transaction as an act of charity. He brings up the magic tumbler, an artifact he claimed possessed the sorcery of preservation. He tries to gaslight the cat, but he is operating on old data. He thinks Theo is still stray. He does not know that the cat has been domesticated by a monster. Theo has spent time in the cave. He has listened to the ramblings of Sejun. He has absorbed knowledge from a world that operates on physics, not fairy tales. Theo does not argue. He dissects. He steps forward, his voice dropping to a cold, factual register. He exposes the tumbler. There is no magic inside the vessel. There is no enchantment. It is a vacuum flask. Theo explains the mechanism. He describes the double walls. He describes the removal of air to prevent heat transfer. He strips away the mysticism of the tower and replaces it with the cold, hard reality of thermodynamics. It is a brutal display. He takes the goblin's magical worldview and crushes it under the heel of logic. Scarum freezes. This is not the wailing of a dissatisfied customer. This is the precision of an executioner. The goblin's eyes dart left and right. The crowd is listening. The lie is unraveling. The technical detail is too specific to be fabricated. Panic sets in. The goblin realizes he is nay. The illusion is gone. He turns to run. A desperate scramble for the alleyways. But Theo is relentless. He calls for the guards. He weaponizes the crowd. The pressure in the air multiplies. Scarum's nerve snaps like a dry twig. He spits a final, venomous threat, the last resort of the powerless, and vanishes into the labyrinth of shadows. Theo stands alone in the center of the thoroughfare. He puffs his chest. He believes he has won. He is wrong. A hooded figure steps from the periphery. A blue cloak. A presence that feels heavier than the surrounding air. The stranger thanks Theo. Theo, shrunk on his own glory, accepts the praise. He introduces himself. He preens. He fails to notice the edge in the stranger's voice. He fails to see the tension in the stranger's posture. The figure offers a warning about caution, but it bounces off Theo's ego like rain on oil. The stranger departs. Theo remains, basking in a victory that exists only in his head. The reality is far colder. Once out of sight, the hooded figure stops. The disguise is discarded. This is not a bystander. This is Agent Zira, the Secret Inspection Bureau, a specialized branch of the Wandering Merchant Association, the secret police of the economy. The alleyway behind him darkens. Shadows peel away from the brickwork. They are not men. Burly canes. Passive Ursanes. Uniformed brutes who move with silent, disciplined weight. They bow. It is a bow of deep, burning shame. Theo has not saved the day. He has detonated a delicate operation. The Bureau had been tracking Scarum for months. They were not interested in petty scams. They were tracking a smuggling ring. Scarum was the leak. He was moving items from the outside. Contraband. Zirath had been undercover. He was seconds away from the sting. He was about to trace the supply line back to the rye at the source. And then the cat started screaming. Theo's heroics spooked the target. The lead is dead. The operation is ash. Zirath's eyes narrow. They are sharp, like cut glass. He looks at his subordinates. He demands 100 letters of apology. The bureaucracy of failure must be observed. But beneath the frustration, a new variable forms in the agent's mind. The cat knew too much. Theo understood the vacuum. He understood the mechanics of an item from the outside. A tower native should not possess this lexicon. The investigation into the goblin is stalled. But a new file opens. Theo is no longer just a loudmouth merchant. He is a loose end. He is a person of interest. The predator's gaze shifts. The crosshairs reeling. Far below the city, deep in the earth, the source of this trouble remains oblivious. Sejun. His world is not made of intrigue. It is made of dirt. He stands before his legion of rabbits. He is holding a potato. To the uninitiated, this is a cooking lesson. To Sejun, it is a tactical briefing. He draws upon the ancient archives of his memory. He recalls the flickering screens of his past life. YouTube tutorials. Content consumed casually while eating instant noodles in a studio apartment. Information that seemed useless then. Now, it is scripture. He explains the anatomy of the tuber. He demonstrates how to segment the potato to maximize yield. He cuts with surgical care, preserving the eyes for sprouting. It is a hack, a glitch in the agricultural matrix. He plants the segments. The tower responds. A chime echoes in the void. Experience +10. A 33 square meter field is established. It is small. It is meaningless to the gods of the tower. But to Sejun, it is the foundation of an empire. He does not stop. Rest is for the dead and the wealthy. Sejun is neither. He marches his workforce to the sweet potato patch. The crop is ready. The rabbits anticipate a harvest. They anticipate food. Sejun disappoints them. He orders them to strip the vines. The rabbits stare. They are confused. Sejun explains the loop. The vines are not waste. They are seeds. They can be replanted. One harvest becomes two. Two becomes four. It is an infinite cycle of production. The rabbits slump. Their shoulders drop. They realize the horror of the situation. There is no end. The work is fractal. It expands with every success. Sejun ignores their despair. He leads by example. He dives into the soil. He plants the cut vines. His hands move with a blurring speed. His proficiency with the sowing skill ticks upward. He turns the drudgery into a race. He competes against his own servants, refusing to let them monopolize the experience points. The dark soil accepts the green vines. The farm expands like a virus. The rabbits, caught in the gravity of his obsession, work until their limbs tremble. They haul wheelbarrows of leaves up the slopes. They stumble. They pant. But they do not stop. The field grows. 500 square meters. The scale is shifting. Sejun wipes the sweat from his brow. The salt stings his eyes. The chime rings out again. Louder this time. Experience +150. A golden light erupts from his skin. Level up. A bonus stat point. The fatigue vanishes, replaced by the endorphin rush of progress. The rabbits sense the shift. The energy in the cave changes. The promise of a future feast overrides the pain of present labor. They begin to dance. A wiggle. A chant. A primitive ritual dedicated to the gods of carbohydrates. Even the tower manager, watching from the abyss, joins the chorus, shouting demands for roasted treats. And then, the earth offers a tribute. In the center of the freshly turned soil, a light detonates. It is blinding. Sejun shields his eyes. He reaches down. The heat radiates against his palm. He pulls. A root emerges. It is not a vegetable. It is a trap star. The sweet potato pumpkin of the sun. A mutant breed. An evolutionary anomaly born from the concentration of sunlight at the tower's highest points. Sejun reads the description. It burns fat. 100 grams of body mass incinerated upon consumption. It grants resistance to cold. 24 hours of thermal insulation. Grady. A treasure. Sejun stares at the glowing root. He has not just farmed. He has created. He has forced the biology of the tower to bend to his will. But while he celebrates in the dark, the ripples of his existence travel far. Across dimensions. Back to the world of concrete and glass. A modern city. Gray skies. The smell of exhaust. A black sedan glides through the traffic. It pulls up to an apartment complex. It is sleek, expensive, and out of place. A man in a sharp suit steps out. He adjusts his cuffs. He looks up at the building. He checks a file. Mr. Sejun's residence. The tower took Sejun in. It swallowed him whole. But the world outside has a long memory. The barrier between the dungeon and reality is thinning. The silence of the missing man has been noticed. The suits have arrived. The investigation has begun. Sejun is planting potatoes in the dark, unaware that he is no longer just a survivor. He is a beacon. And something is coming to answer the signal. The darkness of the dungeon is not empty. It is heavy. It presses against the skin like deep water, waiting for a lung to fail, for a heart to stop. In this suffocating blackness, light is an insult. And in Sejun's hands, the light pulsated. It was a root. A grotesque, mutated lump of vegetation. To the uninitiated, it was a vegetable. To the system that governs this hell, it was a singularity. Sweet potato pumpkin of the sun. The blue text hovered in the stale air. It did not offer congratulations. The tower does not congratulate prey. It offered a contract. A notification flickered, cold and absolute. You have obtained the exclusive rights to cultivate this crop. Read that again. Exclusive. In a closed ecosystem defined by starvation and scarcity, Sejun had just been handed a monopoly on a fragment of the sun. He held the patent on survival. No other entity, no matter how sharp their claws or how vast their mana, could grow this. Only him. He looked at the glowing tuber. He did not smile. Smiling is a waste of calories. He simply understood. This was not food. This was leverage. He returned to the soil. The dirt here is old. It is composed of dust and the decay of things that died screaming. Sejun buried the light. He patted the earth down with hands that had forgotten the texture of luxury. Beside him, the rabbits watch. They are not pets. They are survivors. They have evolved in the dark. They understand the hierarchy of the stomach better than any human scholar. They watched him work, their eyes reflecting the absence of hope. Time in the tower is a lie. It stretches and snaps. Sejun measured it not in hours, but in the rhythm of the harvest. The cycle turned. The earth broke. Purple tubers, heavy with starch and sugar, were dragged from the ground. They were ugly. They were perfect. Sejun built a fire. The flame was small, a flickering act of rebellion against the eternal cold of the dungeon. He placed the sweet potatoes into the heat. Silence stretched. Then, the smell began to rise. It was a weapon. The scent of roasting sugar, of caramelizing starch, cut through the rotting air of the dungeon. It traveled through the ventilation shafts. It drifted into the cracks of the stone. It violated the sterility of the void. The rabbits gathered. Their noses twitched. Their hunger was a physical weight in the room. Sejun peeled the skin. Steam rose, white and thick. He handed the first portion to the rabbits. He is the alpha. The alpha feeds the pack to ensure the pack can hunt. They ate with a violence that bordered on religious fervor. But the scent had traveled further than the campsite. Ding. The sound was sharp, dried, insistent. A blue window opened in the air. It was the tower's manager. The entity that controlled the laws of physics in this dimension. The god of this box. And it was drooling. The message was pathetic. It was a demand born of envy. The manager was watching the rabbits eat. And the manager was jealous. Sejun looked at the void. He did not tremble. He understood the transaction. You do not fight the god. You bribe him. He took 10 roasted sweet potatoes. He placed them into the transfer slot. You have offered a tribute. Deep in the architecture of the tower, in a space that geometry cannot explain, a shadow moved. A black dragon. A creature capable of erasing a city with a sigh. It stared at the small, steaming roots. The sweetness exploded in a mouth that had tasted nothing but manna and dust for centuries. The dragon's eyes narrowed. The boredom of eternity cracked. Just for a moment. It wanted more. It looked through the crystal orb, focusing on the human farmer with the intensity of a sniper acquiring a target. Back in the cave, Sejun moved to the next face. He did not eat the rest. He signaled the scythe rabbit. The creature moved. It was a blur. The blade was not a tool. It was an extension of the rabbit's will. Squing. The sweet potatoes were sliced into perfect, uniform strips. The precision was terrifying. It was the skill of a grandmaster swordsman, applied to a root vegetable. Sejun laid the strips on broad leaves. He was making dried sweet potatoes. Chewy. Long-lasting. Pain. The system screamed. The manager was angry. Why stop? Why destroy the soft, hot food? The dragon was throwing a tantrum. It did not understand delayed gratification. It was a god, and gods are children with too much power. Sejun spoke to the air. His voice was calm, flat, educational. He explained the texture. He explained the concentration of flavor. He told the dragon to wait. He disciplined a deity. And the deity, confused by this new dynamic, fell silent. Sejun returned to his work. He did not look up. Shift reality. Leave the cave. Enter the labyrinth of concrete and steel. So, the air here is different, but the pressure is the same. A hallway in an apartment complex. The fluorescent lights hummed with the sound of urban fatigue. A man in a black suit stood before a door. Kim Dong-sik. Team leader. Phoenix killed. His suit cost more than the car parked outside. His presence was a heavy stone dropped into a quiet pond. He pressed the doorbell. The sound echoed inside the apartment. The door opened. A family stood there. Parents. A younger brother. They looked eroded. 5 months of silence does that to people. It hollows them out. They saw the suit. They saw the guild insignia. Their faces went gray. In their world, a man like this visiting a home like theirs meant only one thing. A notification of death. They invited him in. Their movements were brittle, as if they would shatter if they moved too fast. The mother's hands shook as she poured water. The silence in the living room was thick enough to choke on. They were waiting for him to say the words. He is dead. We found the body. Here is his watch. Kim Dong-sik reached into his jacket. The brother, Sejun, looked away. He could not watch. Kim Dong-sik pulled out an envelope. He placed it on the table. I am here at the request of Park Sejun. The mother made a sound. A small, strangled noise. They thought it was a will. They thought it was the blood money paid out for a corpse. Kim Dong-sik saw the terror in their eyes. He realized the error. He waved his hands, breaking his professional mask. He spoke quickly. He is not dead. The air left the room. The brother grabbed the envelope. He tore it open. A check. 50 million won. The numbers stared back at them, impossible and stark. The mother collapsed. Not from grief, but from the sudden, violent release of tension. She wept. The money did not matter. The paper was proof of lie. Kim Dong-sik watched them. He felt a pang of something human beneath his corporate shell. He began to lie. He could not tell them the truth. He could not tell them their son was lost in a hole in reality. So he spun a fiction. He told them Sejun was on a secret quest. A long-term mission. A restriction on communication. He painted Sejun as a professional. Important. Safe. The family drank the lie like water. They needed it to be true. Kim Dong-sik asked the question that mattered. Did you know he entered the tower? They shook their heads. He had vanished. No registration. No license. Kim Dong-sik's mind began to race. 5 months. Unregistered. And yet, he was sending high-grade items. He was sending millions in cash. The narrative in Kim Dong-sik's head shifted. He did not see a farmer. He saw a ghost. He imagined a hidden genius. A solo player who had bypassed the bureaucracy, climbed the floors in the shadows, and was now dominating the ecosystem. He imagined a warrior of unprecedented talent. He constructed a hero out of his own ignorance. He had no idea Sejun was currently yelling at a rabbit about fertilizer. The younger brother, Sejun, looked up. His eyes were shining. The money. The famous hunter in his living room. The news of his brother's success. It was intoxicating. I want to be a hunter too, Sejun said. The room froze. Kim Dong-sik stopped calculating. He looked at the boy. Then he looked at the parents. He saw the fresh cracks in their souls. He saw the terror they had just barely survived. Kim Dong-sik's face hardened. The mask of the friendly messenger vanished. The predator returned. The word was a wall. One hunter in a family is enough. He stood out. He did not offer encouragement. He did not offer a path. He crushed the dream with the efficiency of a man who knows what the tower actually eats. It eats hope. He bowed to the parents and walked out. The door clicked shut. Kim Dong-sik walked down the hallway. His phone rang. His daughter. His voice changed instantly. The cold steel melted into warmth. He promised to come home. He promised he brought the tomatoes. He walked to his car, holding the small box of cherry tomatoes that Sejun had grown. He treated them like raredoms. He admired the genius of the man who grew them, completely misunderstanding the nature of that genius. He drove away, leaving the family safe in their ignorance. Far away. Deep in the vertical grave of the world. Floor 99. The wind howled against the stone. A cat walked on 2 legs. Theo. A merchant. A wanderer. He trudged up the slope, his boots crunching on the gravel. He was tired. He was annoyed. He adjusted his bag, complaining to the empty air about the distance, about the profit margins, about the cold. He did not know. The darkness of the tower does not nurture. It consumes. It is a void that demands a tax for every breath taken, for every second of continued existence. Most who enter this vertical hellscape crumble under the weight of that silence. They look for exits. They look for salvation. Park Sejun looks at the dirt. He does not see the grave of his hopes. He sees a factory. In the damp, oppressive gloom of the cave, a quiet act of defiance is taking place. It is not the swinging of a sword or the casting of a spell. It is the planting of a severed root. The carrot tops. Green scraps. Garbage to the civilized world above. Here, they are the keys to immortality. Sejun buries them. His hands move with the precision of a surgeon and the cold calculation of a banker. He is not gardening. He is engineering a loop. A closed system of survival. He understands the fundamental law of this prison. Nothing is waste. If it exists, it serves him. The soil accepts the offering. The system, the invisible, omniscient observer, watches this insect struggle against entropy. It grants him a proficiency increase. A number goes up. Sejun does not smile. He simply packs the dirt tighter. The proficiency is irrelevant. The continuity is everything. The silence is absolute. Until it shatters. Dang. The chime of the tower manager. The administrator. The entity that claims dominion over the shadow realm. It does not want a report. It does not want a tribute of blood. It wants snacks. Specifically, the dried sweet potatoes. Sejun turns to the racks. The air in the cave is stale, dry, and constant. It has mummified the sliced tubers. They have changed. They are no longer soft, yielding roots. They have hardened. They have darkened. They have become concentrated ingots of glucose. Shiwei. Ta. A texture that fights back against the tea. Sejun picks one up. The scent is heavy, rustic, and sweet. It smells of life in a place that smells only of stone. The rabbits, those twitching balls of instinct, freeze. Their noses work the air. They recognize the scent. It is the smell of addiction. They want it. They need it. But the manager is impatient. The notifications flood Sejun's vision. Urgent. Demanding. Like a child banging a spoon on a table, but the child has the power to unmake reality. Sejun pauses. He looks at the strips of dried root. He looks at the invisible window of the system. He could just throw them into the void offering box. It would be efficient. But Sejun is playing a longer game. He takes a large green leaf. He wraps the dried potatoes. He folds the edges. He ties it with a fibrous vine. It looks like a commercial product. A gift. It is a psychological weapon. He is not paying a tax. He is civilizing the transaction. He is forcing the entity on the other side to acknowledge him not as a livestock providing meat, but as an equal providing luxury. He sends the package. The response is immediate. A notification of receipt. The tone is described as thankful. Lukewarm. Sejun frowns. He feels slighted. He assumes the offering was insufficient. He is wrong. He cannot see through the veil. He cannot see the reality of the administrator's realm. He cannot see the black dragon. The terrifying, ancient scale of the creature. The claws that could rend mountains. And right now, those claws are trembling. The dragon holds the tiny, leaf-wrap bundle. It is small. It is delicate. It is adorable. The disconnect is total. The human sees a lukewarm business partner. The dragon sees a treasure too cute to open. The hierarchy of the tower is built on misunderstandings. And Sejun is accidentally conquering the heart of a god with dried vegetables. Time bleeds forward. Sejun turns his back on the void and looks at the corn. He had ignored it. He had focused on the earth beneath his feet. But while he looked down, the corn looked up. It has grown with a terrifying, aggressive vitality. The stalks tower over him. They block the weak light of the cave. They stand like sentinels, silent and imposing. The air vibrates. A low, heavy hum. The queen bee arrives. She is not an insect. She is a biological engine of labor. She lands, the wind from her wings kicking up dust. She offers a bundle. Yellow dust. Corn pollen. The ecosystem is shifting. The bees have realized there is no nectar. They have adapted. They are harvesting the dust of the stalks. Sejun tastes it. Bitter. Earthy. Then a sudden, sharp sweetness. It tastes like the ground itself has been turned into candy. He nods to the queen. A silent acknowledgement between the apex predator of the farm and his air force. He is no longer alone. He is the central nervous system of a hive mind. And then, the barrier cracks. A familiar presence enters the domain. Theo. The merchant cat. He returns from the world below. He struts. He puffs his chest. He carries the arrogance of a creature that has seen the world and conquered it. He opens his mouth to bray. Then he sees the queen bee. The silence that follows is hilarious in its cruelty. Theo freezes. The arrogance evaporates. The predator instinct of the cat is overridden by the perennial terror of a creature facing a monster 10 times its size. He cowers. He hides behind Sejun's leg. The hierarchy is re-established instantly. Sejun is the master. The bee is the enforcer. Theo is the bottom of the food chain. To add insult to injury, biology betrays the cat. The pollen hangs heavy in the air. Theo's nose twitches. He sneezes. He wipes the snot on Sejun's pants. Even in a mystical tower, a cat is simply a cat. But the cat has served his purpose. He looks up, eyes watering, and delivers the report. The mission is complete. Sejun sits. The strength leaves his legs. The notification floats in the blue light. Contract quest completed. The money was delivered. The message was sent. 50 million won. It is a number that changes lives in the world outside. Sejun closes his eyes. The cave vanishes. He sees a small, cramped apartment. He sees the steam rising from a pot of stew. He sees his mother's tired face. He hears the gruff, worried tone of his father. He imagines his brother, Saddle, mocking him. The pain hits him like a physical blow. Homesickness is not a sadness. It is a hunger. It is a hollow space in the gut that no amount of dried sweet potato can fill. He is alive. They are safe. But the distance between them is not measured in miles. It is measured in dimensions. He opens his eyes. The dark stone walls return. He looks at the rabbits, the bees, the sneezing cat. This is his reality now. This is his tribe. He pushes the grief down. He buries it, just like the carrot tops. It will serve as fuel. Good job, he says. The voice is steady. Theo preens. The grief of the human means nothing to the capitalist cat. Theo dumps his inventory. He has returned with profit. He played the markets. He scammed the scammers. He has brought back over 200 tower coins. And goods. First, metal. Black heavy iron. A pot. A frying pan. To a warrior, this is junk. To Sejun, this is civilization. Fire. Oil. Sear. The culinary era of the cave has just advanced 1,000 years. The rabbits stare at the metal, unaware that their quality of life is about to skyrocket. Then, the weapon. Theo pulls it from the pile. A short dagger. The sheath is raw. The handle is worn. Sejun takes it. It has weight. It feels like a tool designed for murder. He checks the status. Ready. Manufacturer. Undisclosed. Description. A gamble. A mystery box. Theo bought it from a blacksmith's clearance bin. A piece of scrap metal sold by weight. Sejun hesitates. In the tower, unknown items are dangerous. Curses are real. Traps are common. He prepares to unsheath it. Dane. The manager intervenes. The blue screen flickers. The entity is watching. The entity is curious. The manager offers a deal. I will appraise the item. The cost. 4 dried sweet potatoes. Sejun stares at the screen. A slow, predatory smirk touches his lips. The absolute ruler of this dimension, the Black Dragon, the god of the tower, is bartering its divine powers for snacks. Sejun has turned the economy of the tower upside down. He holds the supply. He controls the demand. He agrees. He hands over the snacks. He hands over the blade. The light of the system washes over the rusted metal. The veil lifts. The truth is revealed. Keena's training short dagger. Wait. Sejun stops breathing for a second. In the world of hunters, this is not a weapon. It is a retirement plan. It is a national treasure. Atoms with names. Atoms with history. They are the domain of the elite. The top 1%. A rank B weapon starts at 100 million won. And that is the floor. Sejun looks at the dagger. Then he looks at the cat. Theo is licking his paw. He has no idea what he has done. The cat is not just a merchant. He is a magnet for probability. He is a chaotic anomaly that stumbles into gold mines while looking for a place to nap. Sejun grips the hilt. He is a farmer. He plants seeds. He waters crops. But now, he holds the power to carve through steel. He is at accumulating. Proficiency. Allies. Wealth. Power. The cave is no longer a prison. It is a fortress. And the lord of the fortress is arming himself. The air in the dungeon is stagnant. It does not circulate. It waits. In this oppressive stillness, a weapon moved. It was a blade forged for blood. A ranked artifact. In the hands of a warrior, it would sever limbs. In the hands of a king, it would sever distinct bloodlines. Here, in the dirt, it severed green onions. Park Sejun held the dagger. There was no resistance. The fibrous stalks of the vegetables did not just cut. They ceased to exist at the point of contact. The metal passed through them like a ghost passing through a wall. Swoosh. Swoosh. The sound was insulting to the weapon's dignity. But the efficiency was absolute. The harvest piled up. Green stalks falling in a rhythmic, hypnotic cadence. Sejun did not look at the blade with reverence. He looked at it with the cold, calculating eyes of a factory foreman. It was a tool. Nothing more. Beside him, another tool was malfunctioning. Theo. The wandering merchant. The sales cat. A creature of commerce and fluff. The cat was currently lost in a hallucination of its own grandeur. He had eaten a processed tree. He was vibrating with sugar and arrogance. But Sejun knew the truth. The timer was ticking. The sales cat persona was a temporary buff. A fleeting psychosis. When the clock ran out, the merchant would vanish, replaced by a lazy, Useless feline who would demand a nap in the sun. Sejun checked the time. Minutes remaining. He needed to secure the supply line. He needed to break the creature's will. He did not use the dagger. He used his hands. He reached out. He took the cat's front paw. In the wild, touching the limb of a predator is a declaration of war. It is a suicidal infraction. Here, it was a negotiation tactic. Sejun began to knead. He pressed his thumbs into the soft, pink pads of the cat's paw. The jelly. The nerve endings. The osteophane. His eyes widened. His mouth opened to protest, to declare his status as a high-ranking merchant of the tower, to demand the human grovel. But the protest died in his throat. It was replaced by a vibration. A purr. A traitorous, rumbling sound of absolute submission. The hierarchy of the tower collapsed. The predator melted. Theolife. A delirious, broken sound. He convinced himself this was tribute. He told himself he was the emperor, allowing a peasant to polish the royal jewels. These are the golden paws. Theo declared, his voice slurring with pleasure. Humans bow to these paws. Sejun did not bow. He smiled. A thin, predatory smile that the cat was too intoxicated to see. He didn't care about the paws. He cared about the contract. But biology is cruel. And time is undefeated. The hour struck. The magic faded. Theo blinked. The diligent sails get died. The lazy house get resurrected. He pulled his paw away. He yawned. He looked at Sejun with boredom. The transaction was over. He prepared to leave. Sejun's smile vanished. He could not allow the asset to liquidate itself. He needed an escalation. A bribe that bypassed the logic of the brain and struck directly at the stem. He opened his inventory. He did not bring out gold. Gold is heavy. Gold is useless when you are hungry. He brought out chemistry. He poured a small amount of white crystals into his palm. Salt. And next to it, a dark, volatile powder. Pepper. To a human from the surface, this is a condiment. To a creature trapped in a dungeon, living on raw meat and blood, this is not food. It is a revelation. It is divine intervention. The scent drifted on the stagnant air. Sodium. Spice. It hit Theo's nose. The reaction was instantaneous. The cat froze. His pupils dilated until they swallowed the gold of his irises. The lethargy evaporated. His tail twitched. His instincts screamed. He looked at the white powder as if it were the dust of stars. What? Theo whispered. What is that smell? Sejun closed his hand. He cut off the supply. A trade, Sejun said. His voice was flat. 24 hours. He offered the spices. He demanded time. It was extortion. It was beautiful. Theo did not hesitate. He did not negotiate. He sold his freedom for a dash of seasoning. Deal, the cat hissed. The contract was sealed. Sejun moved to the fire. The camp shifted into a new phase. The preparation of the feast. He grilled fish. The scent of burning wood and searing meat filled the cave. He separated the catch. One pile for the salt. One pile for the pepper. The white rabbits approached. They were creatures of the soil. Gentle. They sniffed the peppered fish. They recoiled. Their eyes watered. They coughed, hacking as the capsaicin assaulted their delicate senses. Pain. They retreated to the salted pile. But the black rabbit, the warrior, he did not retreat. He stepped forward. He took the peppered fish. He bit down. The heat exploded in his mouth. He did not cough. He chewed. He swallowed. He looked at Sejun with a nod of respect. Pain was fuel. Theo, however, was a creature of luxury. He demanded the salt. He lectured Sejun on the refinement of the palate, on the delicate balance of flavors, sounding like a critic in a high-end restaurant. He ate with voracious, desperate speed. He licked the salt from his claws. He was trapped. Sejun watched them eat. He did not join the revelry. He went back to work. The dagger flashed in the sunlight. Swoosh. Swoosh. System notifications flooded his retina. The text scrolled faster than he could read. Proficiency increased. Proficiency increased. The dagger was teaching him. The option. Proficiency plus 5% was not a passive stat. It was an active tutor. It guided his hand. It corrected his ankle. With every slice, Sejun became less of a farmer and more of a machine. He was mastering the harvest. He needed to capitalize on Theo's high. The cat was full. The cat was happy. The cat was malleable. Sejun harvested a batch of cherry tomatoes. Grit. Ray. Bursting. He bagged them. He handed them to the merchant. Go, Sejun said. Take these to the smithy. Raid the lottery. He gave the cat a title. Chairman Theo. It was a meaningless collection of syllables, a remnant of a corporate structure that had crumbled long ago. But to the cat, it was a crown. Theo puffed out his chest. He accepted the burden. He accepted the title. He marched away, convinced he was a titan of industry, carrying a bag of vegetables. Sejun watched him leave. The silence returned. He turned back to the vines. He reached for the next cluster. He severed the stem. Dane. A different sound. A different color. Sejun froze. He looked at the fruit in his hand. Magical cherry tomatoes. Rank. Effect. Breaks down body fat. Charges magic power. The text hovered in the air, mocking him. Sejun stopped breathing for a second. He looked at the path where Theo had vanished. He looked at the tomatoes in his hand. He had sent the merchant away with the garbage. He had kept the treasure. The farm was evolving. The soil was waking up. These weren't calories. This was mana. This was power. He had missed the sale. A loss of profit. A tactical error. Sejun closed his eyes. He exhaled. Regret is inefficient. He sat down. He ate the magical tomatoes himself. He felt the hum. A subtle vibration under his skin. Magic entering the bloodstream. He sat with the rabbits, chewing on power, watching the dust motes dance in the light. It was peaceful. It was quiet. Too quiet. Far above. Miles above the dirt. In a chamber of cold stone. A giant eye opened. The pupil was a vertical slit of darkness. Aileen. The black dragon. She was not sleeping. She was watching. A crystal sphere floated before her massive snout. Inside the glass, a tiny image played out. A man. Rabbits. Tomatoes. She saw the domesticity. She saw the order. She saw the spices. Most dragons would see insects. Aileen saw entertainment. She saw a variable in an equation that had been static for centuries. She was bored. And a bored dragon is a catastrophe waiting to happen. Interesting. She didn't say. She thought it. And the thought shook the foundations of the tower. She decided that watching was no longer enough. She wanted to participate. She wanted to poke the anthill. She raised a claw. She cast a spell. She channeled magic into the ventilation shaft that connected her realm to the basement. A delivery. Down below. The system screamed. Warning. Warning. Red text fractured Sejun's vision. Wake up. The piece shattered. The silence died. The air pressure in the cave spiked. Sejun's eyes snapped open. His heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. Sound. A whistling sound. Something falling. Something heavy. Displacing the air. Plummeting down the shaft. Aiming for the hard earth. Sejun moved. He did not think. Thought is too slow. He moved on pure, terrified instinct. He lunged forward. He extended his arms. He caught the projectile. Thud. The impact drove the air from his lungs. It was heavy. It was warm. It was soft. Sejun gasped, steadying himself. He looked down at the bundle in his arms. It wasn't a rock. It wasn't a weapon. It was a lie. The weight in Sejun's arms was deceptive. It felt like flesh. It felt like soft, warm fur. It had a heartbeat that fluttered against his chest like a trapped bird. But Sejun was not holding an animal. He was holding a biological warhead. The baby crimson giant bear blinked. Its eyes were wet. Confused. It looked at the world with the innocent stupidity of a creature that has never known hunger or fear. It was small enough to cradle in the crook of an elbow. A fatal illusion. Sejun looked down at the creature. His mind, however, drifted back to the blue moon. He remembered the silhouette that had blocked out the sky. The adult crimson giant bear. A monster that did not walk, but rather reshaped the landscape with its stride. A creature that treated the ecosystem of the tower as a personal buffet. This trembling red ball of fluff in his arms was the seed of that apocalypse. The tower intervened immediately. A blue window materialized. The text was sharp. Purge in. The tower manager was not making conversation. It was issuing a warning. The mother crimson giant bear is searching for her child. Send the cub away. Immediately. The message was binary. Life or death. Action or consequence. But humanity has a defect. It creates problems where none exist. It projects emotions onto biological machines. Sejun looked at the cub. He saw a victim of gravity. He saw a baby that had fallen down a hole. He did not see a predator. He argued with the blue screen. He accused the tower manager of being heartless. He projected his own loneliness onto the system. He hesitated. In the tower, hesitation is usually the precursor to digestion. The cub wiggled free. It hit the ground with a clumsy thud. It shook its red fur. It began to explore. The cave held its breath. The rabbits, Sejun's loyal workers, froze. Their instincts were sharper than their masters. They did not see a cute visitor. They smelled the scent of the apex. They smelled the bloodline that had hunted their ancestors for 1,000 generations. They backed away. Their ears flattened against their skulls. The cub did not care. It toddled forward. It found the bees. It chased them. Again. The hive buzzed with defensive violence. Sejun stepped in. The mediator of the absurd. He soothed the bees. He calmed the cub. He decided to play God with the food chain. He turned to the queen bee. He asked for a favor. A drop of honey. Liquid gold. Concentrated energy. He offered it to the cub. The creature licked the honey. Its eyes widened. In that moment, a contract was signed. Not with ink, but with glucose. The cub laughed. A sound that should have been sweet. But to the observant eye, it was the sound of an addiction forming. The bear had tasted the high-value resources of the farm. It would never be satisfied with scraps again. The tower manager was watching. The entity's patience evaporated. A quest window slammed into existence. Quest. Send the baby bear away. Reward. Job skill. Failure penalty. Starvation. The tone had shifted. The tower was no longer advising. It was dictating. The penalty was specific. Starvation. Sejun read the text. He scoffed. He accused the manager of jealousy. He thought the entity was envious of his bond with the living thing. Arrogance. Pure, unadulterated human arrogance. Sejun looked at the sleeping cub. It was exhausted from the sugar crash. It looked harmless. He made a concession. He would keep it for one night. Just one night. Let it rest. Let it recover. He would send it back to the cruel surface in the morning. He told himself it was kindness. He closed his eyes. He slept. Time in the tower is not a river. It is a heavy, suffocating blanket. Morning came. Sejun opened his eyes. The cave was silent. Too silent. The ambient noise of the farm, the rustling of leaves, the movement of rabbits was gone. He sat up. He looked at his storage area. The pile of crops. The hard-won calories. The barrier between him and death. Gone. Devastated. Scattered leaves. Bitten stems. The ruin of a harvest. And sitting in the middle of the wreckage was the bear. It was no longer small. It was no longer cute. In a single night, the creature had doubled in size. Its shoulders were broad. Its claws were thicker. Its jaw was whiter. It sat there, finishing the last carrot. Crunch. 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 It looked at Sejun. The eyes were the same. Innocent. Happy. But the body was a weapon. Sejun froze. The realization hit him like a bucket of ice water. The tower manager's warning. The penalty clause. Starvation. It wasn't a punishment from the system. It was a prediction of cause and effect. The crimson giant bear was a biological furnace. It converted food into mass at a terrifying rate. If Sejun kept this thing for another day, it wouldn't just eat the crops. It would eat the seeds. It would eat the roots. It would eventually look at the rabbits. And then it would look at Sejun. The hierarchy of the cave had shifted while he slept. He was no longer the owner. He was the cafeteria lady. Sejun stood up. His legs were shaky. He looked at the empty air. He apologized. You were right. He admitted defeat. The bear had to go. Not because it was evil, but because the laws of physics demanded it. The cave could not sustain two appetites of this magnitude. The eviction began. It was not a battle. It was a logistical operation. Sejun braided vines. He created a harness. The bear, heavy with stolen food, was docile. It allowed Sejun to tie it up. The rabbits emerged from hiding. They looked at the bear with hatred, but they helped. They pulled the ropes. The beast lent their strength. A living pulley system. They hoisted the red beast into the air. Up toward the hole in the ceiling. Up toward the exit. The bear dangled. It looked down. It didn't understand. Sejun felt a pang of guilt. The useless emotion returned. He reached into his inventory. One last handful of honey. A parting gift. A bribe to ensure the creature left with a sweet taste in its mouth, rather than a grudge. He held it out. The bear licked it. Happy. Oblivious. It kicked its legs. Sejun waved. Don't come back. The bear disappeared over the lip of the hole. Quest completed. Skill acquired. Seed gathering. The chime was the sweetest sound Sejun had ever heard. The crisis was averted. He collapsed onto the dirt. The rabbits huddled around him. They had survived the invasion of the gluttonous one. Peace returned to the cave. The rhythm of labor resumed. Sejun replanted. He watered. He waited. Days passed. The tomato plants recovered. Red fruit began to swell on the vines. The trauma of the bear faded. It became a story. A joke about resource management. Sejun hummed to himself as he tended the cherry tomatoes. He was safe. He was hidden. He was the master of his domain. Then, the ground did not shake. It shivered. A low-frequency vibration traveled through the stone floor, up Sejun's legs, and settled in his spine. Dust trickled from the ceiling. Sejun stopped. He looked up at the opening. The circle of light that led to the outside world. A shadow fell over him. A familiar shape peered over the edge. Red fur. Round ears. The baby bear. It was back. Sejun's heart stopped. The cub waved a paw. It made a happy sound. But Sejun did not look at the cub. He looked at the darkness behind it. The light from the surface was being blocked. Not by a cloud. Not by the night. Something was standing over the hole. Something massive. The cub had not just gone home. It had gone to fetch its mother. The sheer scale of the silhouette was impossible to comprehend. It blotted out the sun. The head the size of a house moved into view. One eye, large as a pond and cold as the void, peered down into the tiny hole. It focused on Sejun. The farmer. The human. The one who had fed the child. The pressure in the cave dropped. The air felt heavy, charged with static and apex intent. Sejun stood among his cherry tomatoes. He held a watering can. He looked up at the abyss of fur and teeth that was descending to greet him. He had invited a guest. And the guest had brought the apocalypse to his front door. Survival was no longer about farming. It was no longer about skills. It was about praying the ceiling didn't collapse under the weight of a god. Sejun stared up. His mouth opened. Only one word existed in the entire universe that could describe this moment. Jet. With the surface farm secured, and a tribe of wolves now on the peril, Sejun's biggest problem is no longer safety, but the empty stomachs of his growing family. The abyss below the pond is calling, and what he finds in the deep will change the farm's future forever. Join us in the next part to see what lurks beneath, and feel free to like and subscribe to keep the story growing.